Chapter 1387. Casey shook his head and said, "The vampire hunters haven't been sentenced to such a heavy sentence in many years. If a third-generation vampire is really resurrected, the vampire hunters will have to use force. It's Mina's fault for coming at such a sensitive time," Ning Shu analyzed. Perhaps Fei Rui had destroyed the vampire hunters in the name of saving Mina. This could be a signal from the awakened vampire. Ning Shu clenched his fists. He really wanted Fei Rui to stay in the manor. It would be best if he could destroy Fei Rui. "Begin the execution," the vampire hunter's supervisor said. Then, there were two people holding large saws. The saws were incomparably shiny and the teeth were sharp. Under the illumination of the sun, they flashed a little bit of light. It made one's heart turn cold. Mina looked at the saws that were getting closer and closer to her. She was extremely scared and kept shaking her head. Her face was distorted from fear. She wanted to speak, she wanted to beg for mercy, but she couldn't make a sound. Mina suspected that she was dreaming. Otherwise, why would something like this happen? The large saws were placed between Mina's legs. They were just waiting for the order to start sawing from the bottom up. Mina was so scared that her whole body was trembling. She looked around, trying to find someone to save her. Her gaze stopped on Ning Shu. She looked at Ning Shu with a pleading and helpless expression. It was a cry for help. Ning Shu's heart was as hard as iron. He even smiled at Mina. Mina saw Ning Shu's smile and was stunned for a moment. She shivered all over. Mina felt extremely wronged. Why did Mina treat her like this? Ning Shu wasn't worried at all about the bloody scene that would follow. As the female lead, how could her crotch be cut open? Soon, Fei Rui would bring a large group of vampires and ride on a rainbow cloud to save the damsel in distress. Ning Shu closed his eyes and began to adjust his state of mind. There was definitely going to be a big battle later. There was a fiery red magma-like energy surging in his dantian. There were also fire dragons surging in the magma. Such a powerful fire energy would definitely cause harm to those vampires. Carry out the punishment. The woman in the red dress standing on the high platform said with a solemn expression. Just as the two men with the saw were about to begin, a voice boomed, "Stop right there." Sure enough, at the critical moment, if he had been just a little bit late, Mina's flower would have been destroyed. When Ning Shu heard the address of this king, he nearly thought that he had transmigrated again. How could a vampire address himself as this king? The woman in the red dress stood on the high platform and frowned as she watched the group of people fly in. Ning Shu estimated that Fei Rui had brought more than 100 vampires with him this time. Every one of them was dressed in black and wore a black cloak. Fei Rui, who was in the lead, was dressed in a luxurious suit. He looked at Mina, who was tied to a rack. Mina was trembling like a flower that had been ravaged by a storm. Her face was filled with fear, and even her pupils were dilating. In short, he was scared silly. When Mina saw Fei Rui, she immediately started crying. Her tears fell as she stared straight at Fei Rui. She looked pitiful. When Fei Rui saw this, his eyes turned even redder. It was so red that it looked like blood was about to drip out. When a vampire was angry, their eyes would turn red. Fei Rui was very angry now. He looked at the woman in the red dress on the high platform and said loudly, "Don't you think you're going overboard?" The woman in the red dress said indifferently, "Overboard? What does it have to do with you how I deal with my vampire hunters people? What right do you have to criticize me?" Fei Rui's expression was tense as he said domineeringly, "What if I have to take her away today? Mina belongs to me. Since when is it your turn to deal with her?" Mina grew up among the vampire hunters. She belongs to them regardless of life or death. Since you didn't embrace Mina, what right do you have to say that Mina belongs to you? The woman in the red dress raised her eyebrows and swept her gaze over Fei Rui and Mina. The woman in the red dress was like a rose with thorns. She looked at Mina coldly. "Is this how you repay the vampire hunters who raised you? The vampire hunters are an organization. Anyone who makes a mistake must be punished." Mina lowered her head, not daring to meet the woman's gaze. "Dai Lin, if there's anything, just talk to me directly. Why do you have to make things difficult for a 17 or 18-year-old girl?" Fei Rui said coldly. Because of his anger, his eyes were bloodshot. Coupled with his exquisite face, he looked exceptionally evil. His sharp teeth were bared, as if he was about to bite someone at any time. What if I have to take her away today? If you insist on not doing so, then the vampire hunters and vampires will definitely go to war, Fei Rui threatened. The woman in the red dress, Dai Lin, stared at Fei Rui coldly. What if I don't let her go today? Then there's no other way, Fei Rui said helplessly. Ning Shu suddenly stood up and coughed. He said to the leader, Dai Lin, actually, we can let Mina go. Dai Lin looked at Ning Shu coldly. Whoever interferes will be cut in half at the waist. Ning Shu said, you've really wronged Mina. Mina would never betray the vampire hunters. Oh, what do you mean? Dai Lin seemed to be very curious. If Mina didn't betray the vampire hunters, then it would be a little embarrassing for Fei Rui to save her. Fei Rui looked down at them condescendingly. His sharp teeth moved, and his expression was arrogant. Mina was speechless. Even Mina herself thought that she had betrayed the vampire hunters. After all, she really did have feelings for Fei Rui. But now, Jasmine actually said that she didn't betray the vampire hunters. What was going on? She had betrayed her before, and when she asked for help just now, she turned a blind eye to it. Now, she jumped out and said that she was wronged. What was Jasmine trying to do? Was she trying to act nice in front of Fei Rui? Could it be that Jasmine also liked Fei Rui, so she was acting like this in front of him? The more Mina thought about it, the angrier she got. This woman was too hypocritical. She had previously said that she wouldn't betray the vampire hunters and had a firm stand and principles. But now, she was acting pretentious in front of the person she liked. Mina opened her mouth but couldn't say a word. She could only look at Fei Rui anxiously. Please don't listen to this woman's words. She betrayed me. Mina had thousands of words to say, but she couldn't say them. Seeing the smile on Ning Shu's face, Mina had a bad feeling in her heart. Ning Shu stood on the stage and said to Dai Lin, the woman in the red dress, Mina actually walked like this on purpose. This way, Fei Rui would bring the vampires to save her. Once the vampires are trapped, the stronger vampires will be eliminated. This will weaken the vampire's strength. Mina and I didn't do well, so we came up with this idea. Ning Shu spouted nonsense. He described Mina as a righteous person who sacrificed herself for the sake of the organization's great image. Chapter 1388. When Ning Shu said this, he was flustered. Not only was Ning Shu flustered, but even Mina had an incredulous expression on her face. When did she plan something like this with Jasmine? What kind of nonsense was Jasmine talking about? Mina raised her head and saw Fei Rui floating in the air. Fei Rui's expression was ugly, and he looked hesitant. Mina instantly understood why Ning Shu said this. She was trying to drive a wedge between her and Fei Rui. In all honesty, she really didn't want to use a honey trap to trick Fei Rui into coming to the manor. Mina opened and closed her mouth at Fei Rui, but she couldn't say anything. She was so anxious that tears streamed down her face. When Fei Rui saw Mina crying, he turned around and looked at the group of vampires behind him. He suspected that Mina was doing this on purpose. Fei Rui was in an awkward position now. He had brought a large group of people here, and now he realized that he might have fallen into a honey trap. It was the vampire hunter's doing. But the Mina he knew was definitely not someone like that. Maybe Mina didn't know and was being used by the vampire hunters. The woman in the red dress narrowed her eyes, then smiled like a beautiful rose. So that's what happened. Since it's a misunderstanding, then you don't have to be cut in half. Someone immediately untied Mina. Mina's feelings were extremely complicated. She would rather be tied up. She couldn't say anything, and she had no way to explain. Ning Shu walked over and held Mina's arm. He smiled sweetly. Mina, it's been hard on you. You've done a lot to attract so many vampires. From now on, I only want a quarter of the rewards. The rest is yours, Ning Shu said with a smile. Mina pushed Ning Shu away, but Ning Shu only took a step back and stopped steadily. He wasn't angry at all, and he still looked at Mina with a smile. Mina couldn't speak, so she could only wave at Fei Rui. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. There was no way to explain. Mina was disheartened and looked at Ning Shu with eyes full of hatred. Ning Shu was still smiling as he reached out his hand to pull Mina away. Let's go. The next battle isn't something we can participate in. You've already made a great contribution. To prevent Fei Rui from venting his anger on you, let's leave first, Ning Shu said with concern. With every word Ning Shu said, Mina and Fei Rui's faces darkened. Mina wanted to shake off Ning Shu's hand, but with Ning Shu's tight grip, she couldn't break free at all. Dai Lin smiled and said, "The next battle is indeed not something the two of you can worry about. Since you have made such a great contribution, you will be rewarded in the future." Ning Shu looked at Dai Lin. Although Dai Lin was smiling, there was no trace of a smile in her eyes. This showed that she was very unhappy. However, after protecting the reputation of the vampire hunters and making the vampires unhappy, Dai Lin took advantage of the situation. The evidence of Mina's betrayal of the vampire hunters was conclusive. After dealing with these vampires, they would deal with them. Mina was panicking. She couldn't leave. She had to explain everything to Fei Rui. She didn't plan anything. She didn't know anything. Molly had set her up on purpose. Ning Shu used a little strength and pulled Mina away. Mina's strength was not worth mentioning in front of Ning Shu. Ning Shu pulled Mina back into the room. Mina's lips moved as if she was talking to Ning Shu, but no sound came out. Mina was so angry that she reached out to hit Ning Shu. This woman was too vicious, too vicious. Ning Shu grabbed Mina's wrist and used his other hand to chop Mina unconscious. Ning Shu dragged Mina to the bed and tied her hands and feet with rope. Then he tied her to the bed. After doing this, Ning Shu locked the door and went to the square. The two sides had already started fighting because the vampires that Fei Rui brought were all elites. Many of them were nobles. Therefore, the vampire hunters were at a disadvantage. Many of them had their chests pierced by the vampire's claws. The smell of blood was so strong that it made it hard for people to breathe. This was a one-sided massacre. Ning Shu saw the battle between Fei Rui and Dai Lin on the high platform. Dai Lin was holding a white staff in her hand. The staff released a white halo. Ning Shu, what did she see? Could it be that Dai Lin was really a magician? He felt like he was going to be drunk. Ning Shu's fingers moved quickly. With the support of the Yang Gathering formation, he formed a huge talisman. This talisman burned with a raging fire. As soon as the talisman appeared, the surrounding air became extremely hot. The huge talisman turned into countless rays of light and flew towards the vampires. When the talisman touched the vampires' bodies, it immediately ignited into a raging fire. The vampires jumped and tried to slap the flames on their bodies. However, the flames couldn't be extinguished. Instead, they burned even more fiercely. The vampires howled in pain and finally turned into ashes. Ning Shu, holy shit. He didn't expect this at all. This talisman was the most yang energy between heaven and earth. Vampires were nocturnal creatures that were afraid of sunlight. With the support of such energy, the talisman was simply the bane of vampires. The other blood hunters were horrified. Many of them stared blankly at Ning Shu. It was as if they were looking at a monster. Fei Rui, who was fighting on the high platform, noticed the situation below. He was stunned for a moment. Dai Lin seized the opportunity and the white light hit Fei Rui. Fei Rui flew down the high platform and tried to stop Ning Shu. Ning Shu smiled and formed a hand seal. He dodged Fei's attack and a talisman flew towards Fei Rui. Fei Rui saw with his own eyes that the vampires he brought with him were turned into ashes. He wouldn't let the talisman get close to him. Fei Rui teleported to avoid the talisman. He suddenly appeared behind Ning Shu and extended his sharp claws. He wanted to use his nails to pierce through Ning Shu's body. Ning Shu dodged. "You're not the only one who's fast." Ning Shu sent out a fire dragon. When the flames touched Fei Rui's clothes, Fei Rui immediately took off his cloak. The flames on the cloak crackled. Fei Rui gave up on his cloak. Fei Rui's originally pale and bloodless face turned ashen. His eyes were incomparably red, striking fear into those who looked at him. Where's Mina? Tell Mina to come out. Fei Rui's teeth were even sharper. Ning Shu shrugged. Mina has already left. She doesn't need to see you. I don't believe you. Fei Rui stared at Ning Shu with his bloodshot eyes. Believe it or not, it's up to you. In any case, Mina won't see you again. This was our plan from the beginning. You've seen my strength. I'm really tired of you vampires. You use this method to wipe out your elites. Chapter 1389. Of course, if you think that Mina loves you, then Mina and I don't mind. Ning Shu spouted nonsense with her white teeth. Anyway, it was good to make these two misunderstand. It would be best if they had a love-hate relationship. Let me explain. I don't want to listen, I don't want to listen, I don't want to listen. This was a good situation. Fei Rui's face turned even paler. It was almost the color of a corpse. Fei Rui roared. His teeth became big and sharp. Die for me. Ning Shu was not afraid of Fei Rui at all. She quickly formed a seal with her fingers. Her speed was so fast that her fingers left afterimages. Ning Shu's face turned a little pale as she formed an extremely complicated talisman. This talisman slowly appeared between Ning Shu's fingers. The talisman was golden in color. It was very solid and clashed with Fei Rui. Fei Rui was furious, especially when he found out that Mina had betrayed him. He ignored all opposition and led a group of people to face the situation. Even though he knew that this Eastern spell was very powerful, he still chose to face it head-on. The two of them clashed, creating a powerful shockwave that swept across the surroundings. Many people were affected and were thrown to the ground. Fei Rui was hit by the talisman. His body was covered in flames. However, Fei Rui was very strong. He was not burned to ashes like the other vampires. Under the burning flames, Fei Rui was in a lot of pain. Ning Shu made up her mind. It was best to get rid of Fei Rui now. Ning Shu stretched out her hand and attacked Fei Rui's heart. She wanted to crush Fei Rui's heart. Although a vampire's heart did not beat, it was the source of power. Without the support of the heart, Fei Rui would be burned to ashes like the other vampires. Fei Rui was very strong. Even with the talisman, how could he let Ning Shu take out his heart? He stretched out his fist and fought with Ning Shu. Ning Shu and Fei Rui's punches landed on each other. Ning Shu felt that Fei Rui's body was like a steel plate. Every time she hit him, the rebound force hurt his organs. On the other hand, Fei Rui felt that Ning Shu's strength was immense. He felt as though his body was about to be torn apart. Could it be that a vampire's physique was inferior to a human's? Fei Rui knew that he was in a bad situation. The flames were making him feel extremely uncomfortable, and his strength was slowly weakening. If he didn't think of a way, he would really be left here. The elites of the vampires would be buried here. Thinking of this, Fei Rui became even angrier. He hated Mina even more. This was the first time he had been so nice to a human, yet he had been tricked. He was a man who had lived for God knows how long, yet he had been deceived by a 17-year-old human girl. Was he blind, or was it because Mina's acting skills were so good that he was fooled? He looked around and did not see Mina. Was that woman not going to come out and explain herself? Ever since she saw him, Mina hadn't said a single word. Did that mean she had silently agreed? The energy in Fei Rui's body continued to decrease. Not only did he have to resist the power of the talisman, but he also had to deal with Ning Shu. Fei Rui casually grabbed a blood hunter and bit the neck of the blood hunter. Very quickly, he sucked the blood hunter's blood dry and tossed the corpse aside. Ning Shu's expression was cold. His hands quickly formed a seal, and another talisman fell on Fei Rui's body. Fei Rui's complexion became worse and worse. His face actually started to rot, revealing his white bones. Fei Rui's expression was hideous. You deserve to die, you deserve to die. Vampires had always been elegant. Being exposed in front of so many people made Fei Rui very angry. Although he was angry, he was more afraid. Eastern spells were too powerful. They were more powerful than Holy Cross water. Every second he stayed here, he would lose more of his strength. Fei Rui called out helplessly. The rhythm of the sound wave was very strange, and it traveled very far. Dai Lin said, "Quickly get rid of him. He's summoning other vampires." As soon as Dai Lin finished speaking, she looked up at the sky and her pupils constricted. Ning Shu looked at the sky and saw a man in formal attire with a cloak draped over his shoulders. There were bats flying around him. When Fei Rui saw this person, he immediately flew to his side. The man opened his mouth and said something difficult to understand. Fei Rui lowered his head in shame. A drop of blood appeared between the man's eyebrows and imprinted itself on Fei Rui's forehead. Then, the flames on Fei Rui's body gradually extinguished. When Ning Shu saw this scene, his jaw almost dropped. How could a drop of blood be so powerful? If he remembered correctly, this was the vampire they had met at the church. Ning Shu approached Dai Lin and whispered, "This vampire is the one who woke up. Judging by his strength, he must be a third-generation vampire." Dai Lin nodded. "He speaks in the ancient language. He's most likely a third-generation vampire. None of us here are a match for him. If it weren't for God's flood and humanity's arrival on Noah's boat, we would have been reared by the vampires by now." Dai Lin's expression was grave. He really was a third-generation vampire. A single drop of blood could be so powerful. They were indeed a race that could stand shoulder to shoulder with God. She wondered how much blood he had in his body. Fei Rui spoke to the third-generation vampire, but his eyes kept darting toward Ning Shu. Then, the third-generation vampire said something difficult to understand to Ning Shu. "Ning Shu?" Ning Shu was dumbfounded. He had no idea what the vampire was talking about. Ning Shu said to Fei Rui, "What did your ancestor say? Translate for him." Fei Rui's expression was cold. "You've inherited the arts of the East. Why did you set foot in the West? Do you want to start a war? My legs are on my body. I can go wherever I want. What does it have to do with you?" Ning Shu said. Then he said to Fei Rui, "Translate for your ancestor." Fei Rui sneered and continued talking to the third-generation vampire. The third-generation vampire frowned. He looked at Ning Shu calmly, as if he was looking at an ant. There was no emotion in his eyes. His face was very pale. It was as white as a sheet of paper. He wore black clothes. Black and white formed a sharp contrast. Wearing anything was better than wearing black. Was he afraid that others wouldn't know that he was a vampire? Did he not know that black absorbed more heat? At #yen%, the third-generation vampire said again. Ning Shu was speechless. He said to Fei Rui, "Be a good interpreter. Your ancestor has been out of touch with the world for too long. Learn how to communicate with others. Don't let others spoil him." Ning Shu saw Fei Rui's terrified expression in front of the third-generation vampire. He suddenly felt that there was nothing to be afraid of. He was no longer as wary of Fei Rui as before. Ning Shu had already placed himself in the same position as the third-generation vampire. Her opponent now was a third-generation vampire. He was no longer the Fei Rui she used to fear. Chapter 1390. Although Fei Rui had the blood from the third-generation vampire, the wounds on his face had already healed. However, his face was still ashen. It was the color of someone who had been dead for several days. No matter how heaven-defying his looks were, his complexion wasn't impressive, and he looked a lot more lackluster. Moreover, there was a third-generation vampire beside him who was said to be as powerful as a god. Ning Shu's attitude towards him was especially disdainful. This made Fei Rui very angry. Since when did a human have the right to look down on him? Fei Rui's lips moved, revealing his sharp teeth. Ning Shu let out a hoarse roar as if he was demonstrating his power. Ning Shu was expressionless. "What are you doing? Your ancestor and I are both waiting for you to translate. What are you shouting for?" "Fei Rui, I'm asking you which Eastern sorcery you inherited?" Fei Rui asked coldly. Ning Shu smiled and said, "I formed my own sect. Moreover, how can I say my master's name so casually?" Fei Rui purposely showed his sharpness. "I advise you to speak properly. You will be turned into ashes in an instant." The bloodlings called third-generation vampires bloodmasters. Ning Shu raised his chin. Come on. I'm so scared. Come and hit me. Whoever doesn't hit me is a bastard." The onlookers, how despicable. Fei Rui had lived for so long and thought that he had good self-control. However, he was still angered by Ning Shu's shamelessness. Another reason was that he was afraid of Ning Shu. That was why he was so angry. If Ning Shu was just an ant, Fei Rui wouldn't be so emotional. He would just kill him with a wave of his hand. The third-generation vampire, who was floating in the air and surrounded by bats, didn't understand what Ning Shu was saying. However, when he saw her smug expression and arrogant attitude, he knew that she wasn't saying anything good. There was a moment of confusion on the third-generation vampire's face. Had he been asleep for too long? Did the people of this world not worship and fear vampires anymore? Fei Rui gritted his teeth and conveyed Ning Shu's words to the third-generation vampire. The third-generation vampire frowned and stared at Ning Shu with his sharp eyes. Ning Shu was still smiling, but his body was tense. He was ready to fight back. She wanted to test the strength of the newly awakened third-generation vampire. After being injured, his strength must have decreased. Even if he had hibernated until now, his strength must not be as strong as when he was at his peak. The bats around the third-generation vampire chirped and swarmed towards Ning Shu. These bats looked very scary. They had scarlet eyes, which were bigger and more ferocious than ordinary bats. The black mass of Ning Shu rushed over. Dai Lin raised her staff and wanted to release a spell, but Ning Shu pulled her behind him. With a flick of his finger, a miniature fire dragon flew out from Ning Shu's hand and charged towards the bat. When the two met, the bats fell to the ground like hailstones. The bats were all burnt, and the air was filled with the smell of burnt meat. The third-generation vampire didn't even blink when his bat died. He didn't expect these bats to be able to deal with the Eastern sorcerers. Although they couldn't deal with him, they were enough to deal with ordinary people. The third-generation vampire raised his hand. His ruby ring shone faintly under the sunlight. It was so red that it gave people an ominous feeling. Although he didn't know what the third-generation vampire wanted to do, it was definitely not good for the blood hunters. The atmosphere was heavy. The third-generation vampire chanted a very complicated and difficult-to-understand sentence. Ning Shu was too lazy to let Fei Rui translate. Let him do whatever he wanted. A big fight was inevitable anyway. After the vampire chanted, a black mass appeared on the horizon. Because it was too far away, they couldn't tell what it was. When the black cloud came closer, they realized that it was actually countless bats. These bats rushed towards the blood hunters present. Dozens of bats were crouching on the human's body, biting the exposed skin. It was summer now, so everyone was wearing very cool clothes. Soon, they were bitten all over by the huge bats. These bats seemed to be poisonous. When bitten, the wounds would turn black. Dai Lin bit her lip and released white magic, turning the bats into ashes. Ning Shu's expression was cold. He quickly pinched his fingers and activated the manor's most powerful yang gathering formation. Then he formed a huge talisman. This talisman turned into dense lines of rain. It fell on the countless bats like rain. When the bats came into contact with the talisman, they screeched in fear and turned into ashes. Ning Shu looked at the third-generation vampire and Fei Rui, who were floating in the air. Even if she couldn't kill the third-generation vampire, she had to get rid of Fei Rui. At least this way, the danger that Fei Rui posed to her would be resolved. Fei Rui might lose this time, but the next time they met, he would be stronger. Don't forget that Fei Rui had a lot of luck, and he was also a third-generation vampire. Maybe Fei Rui could reach new heights. Also, she had already offended Fei Rui. She had to get rid of him or there would be endless trouble. Ning Shu's gaze met the third-generation vampires. The third-generation vampires seemed to be observing Ning Shu and evaluating Ning Shu's strength. Then, he raised his hand and a round bead of blood appeared in his palm. The bead of blood flew towards Ning Shu at an extremely fast speed. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Was he trying to contaminate him with blood? Sometimes, a vampire's blood was like a virus. It could turn a contaminated human into a monster that only knew how to suck blood. They would lose all will and thoughts. A huge fire dragon appeared behind Ning Shu's back. This fire dragon was covered in flames. The space around it was distorted by the heat. The fire dragon roared silently. It opened its mouth and swallowed the blood bead. The blood bead was evaporated by the high temperature. Everyone looked up at the fire dragon in the sky. Were they watching a sci-fi movie? And they were so hot. It was as if they were being roasted on fire. Many people's hair swelled and curled up. Some people's hair even started to burn. Ning Shu heaved a sigh of relief and touched her hair. His heart was filled with melancholy. This was the bad thing. The heat wave attacked indiscriminately. Ning Shu pointed at Fei Rui and the third-generation vampire. The fire dragon flew towards the two of them at lightning speed. Before the fire dragon got close, Fei Rui's skin started to tighten. His skin and flesh were about to explode. It was extremely uncomfortable. The fire dragon was an item of extreme yang while the vampire was an otherworldly item. Yin and yang complemented and restrained each other. The third-generation vampire's expression didn't change. He even started to fight the fire dragon. Ning Shu's main goal was to kill Fei Rui. He didn't want to fight with the third-generation vampire. The fire dragon roared and pierced through Fei Rui's body twice. Fei Rui's body seemed to be frozen. The skin on his face started to peel off. Chapter 1391. The muscles on Fei Rui's body began to fall off rapidly, revealing his white bones. His face had almost turned into a skeleton. His jaw and nose bones were exposed. His eyes were in his eye sockets. There were no muscles to support them. His eyeballs were about to fall out. The scene was quite horrifying. Ning Shu regretted knocking Mina out. If Mina saw Fei Rui like this, she wondered if she would still like him as much. It seemed that the fire dragon had caused a lot of damage to Fei Rui. Ning Shu was about to do it again when a ray of light shot out from the third-generation vampire's ruby ring and dissipated the fire dragon. Ning Shu was speechless. Fuck. It was annihilated. The energy was annihilated. The fire dragon was annihilated. The fire dragon's energy did not return to her body. It was too perverted to have such a thing. 2 drops of blood appeared between the third-generation vampire's eyebrows. Perhaps it had merged with Fei Rui's eyebrows. That was how Fei Rui's injuries were prevented. Ning Shu suspected that Fei Rui was the third-generation vampire's illegitimate son. Otherwise, why would he save him so many times? Vampires were cold and heartless. Even if they were of the same race, they were indifferent to each other. That was why Ning Shu and you suspected that Fei Rui was related to this third-generation vampire. The third-generation vampire stared at Ning Shu and said something that no one could understand. Fei Rui, who could have translated, was now seriously injured and looked like he was about to die. No one knew what he was saying. In order to show that he was very knowledgeable, Ning Shu pretended that he could understand what he was saying. He spread his hands and scolded, "You son of a bitch! You're so old that your teeth are falling out, yet you still come out to harm others. If I were you, I would have killed myself. If you can't even understand what I'm saying, what's the point of living?" When Ning Shu scolded him, his expression was very calm and serious. It was as if he was talking about something serious. Without Fei Rui's translation, the third-generation vampire did not know what Ning Shu was saying. He looked a little lost. Ning Shu laughed in his heart. "I'll make you feel at a loss." However, vampires could keenly sense good and evil. Therefore, even though Ning Shu was serious, the third-generation vampire directly shot a beam of light at Ning Shu. If they were hit by the light beam, they would be annihilated immediately. His body and soul were gone. What is this thing? Ning Shu quickly dodged the beam. He formed a hand seal and another huge fire dragon rose from his back. The fire dragon headed straight for Fei Rui, avoiding the third-generation vampire. The fire dragon pierced through Fei Rui's body once more, but it was immediately annihilated by the light beam. Ning Shu was a little scared. What the hell was this? However, he had managed to injure Fei Rui once again. At least he had gained something. Ning Shu's dantian had consumed a lot of energy, and the fire dragon's energy had not returned to his dantian. Instead, it was directly annihilated and disappeared without a trace. There wasn't much energy left in her dantian. If she continued to endure like this, She might end up in a passive state. Ning Shu felt uncomfortable all over. I might have absorbed some fake energy. Not only were vampires immortal, but they also had such a powerful tool. Fei Rui, who was once again ravaged by the fire dragon, collapsed completely. The third-generation vampire quickly took out 3 drops of blood and dripped it into Fei Rui's forehead. Since the appearance of the third-generation vampire, he had already used 6 drops of blood on Fei Rui. The blood of a third-generation vampire was extremely precious. He was definitely an illegitimate child. Ning Shu saw that the third-generation vampire's face was a little pale. He guessed that the blood consumption was too much for him to bear. Ning Shu steeled his heart and released the last bit of energy in his dantian. Fire dragons swarmed out one after another, flying towards Fei Rui and the third-generation vampire. He didn't believe that the third-generation vampire's ruby ring had an endless supply of energy. With so many fire dragons, there would definitely be some that slipped through the net. The third-generation vampire's ruby ring destroyed the fire dragons, and the other fire dragons pierced through Fei Rui's body once more. Fei Rui's body became more and more decayed, and gradually he became a skeleton. The third-generation vampire didn't care about anything else. He grabbed Fei Rui's skeleton and teleported away. When Fei Rui and the third-generation vampire disappeared, Ning Shu immediately fell to the ground. He hurriedly fanned himself with his hand. Damn, it was too scary. However, these people had retreated temporarily. They thought that even if Fei Rui didn't die, he wouldn't be in a good condition. After all, he was already a skeleton, and his stomach was black. A lot of energy was needed to save Fei Rui. Where did such a large amount of energy come from? Or was it from the third-generation vampire? The death of countless elite vampires could intimidate the other vampires and calm them down temporarily. Ning Shu looked at the blood hunters on the ground. They had also suffered heavy losses this time. It was as if they had exchanged their lives for his. Ning Shu directly felt the huge difference between humans and vampires. Most of the blood hunters dealt with low-level vampires who killed indiscriminately and didn't follow the rules. They didn't come into contact with the elite vampires at all. It was easy for the vampires to fight 1 against 10. Ning Shu hammered his leg and said to the woman in the red dress, "Dai Lin, I said that on purpose. Mina is not that great." Dai Lin sat on the ground like Ning Shu and flicked her hair. "I know." The inspector investigated Mina's matter thoroughly. Mina's crime is unforgivable. She must die. Ning Shu didn't have any objections. Fei Rui couldn't even protect himself now. He might not even be able to survive. They definitely wouldn't come to save him again. Mina's situation wasn't optimistic. After the battle, Ning Shu's body was sore. He said to Dai Lin, "I'll go back first. Have a good rest. This time, it's all thanks to you. Otherwise, the blood hunters wouldn't have been able to escape." "How did you cultivate your Eastern spells?" Dai Lin asked. "You didn't show this before. Eastern sorcery is all about accumulation." Ning Shu said, "I learned this spell from an Eastern Taoist when I was on a mission. Because I know Eastern spells, does that mean I can't stay in the blood hunters anymore?" Ning Shu asked Dai Lin. Dai Lin shook her head. "As long as we can eliminate the vampires, it doesn't matter what method we use. Moreover, the third generation of vampires has awakened. We need more powerful humans." Ning Shu breathed a sigh of relief. He was afraid that Dai Lin would kick him out of the blood hunters because of the difference in their power system. Now that his dantian was empty, Ning Shu had to start cultivating again. Ning Shu opened the door and saw that Mina had woken up. She was struggling with all her might. When she saw Ning Shu, she immediately cried out. Ning Shu cast a spell and removed Mina's mute spell. "Molly, let go of me, let go of me." Mina cried out loudly. Chapter 1392. Mina's voice was very loud and sharp. She thought that she couldn't speak, so she used all her strength to scream. Mina didn't expect that she would suddenly be able to speak. Even she was shocked by her own voice. Mina was overjoyed. She could finally speak. Ning Shu walked in front of Mina, who was jumping around like a fish, and said with a smile, "You're awake." Mina stared at Mina. Suddenly, Mina spat at Ning Shu. Ning Shu leaned to the side and avoided Mina's spit. Ning Shu's expression was calm. He wasn't angry. Mina said to Ning Shu angrily, "Molly, I've never seen a woman as evil as you. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning?" Mina looked at Ning Shu. "You're deliberately trying to drive a wedge between Fei Rui and me. How can you be so evil?" "You're evil." Ning Shu nodded. "I'm evil. Come and bite me." "Oh right, let me show you something. Then you won't call me evil." Ning Shu took out his phone. There was a skeleton in the phone. A person was carrying the skeleton and flying away. "Take a look." Mina took a look at the photo on her phone and screamed in fright. She was frightened by the skeleton. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu dug his ears. What was she screaming about? "You see the skeleton." Ning Shu pointed at the skeleton. "Guess who this is?" Mina ignored Ning Shu and turned her head to the side. Ning Shu didn't mind. He smiled and said, "This is Fei Rui. I beat Fei Rui into a skeleton." Mina turned her head around abruptly, and her neck made a cracking sound as she turned around too quickly. Her neck was injured. Mina's expression was incredulous. Her neck was injured, so her expression froze. How did Fei Rui become like this? What ability do you have to deal with Fei Rui? Mina understood Fei Rui's strength too well. Fei Rui had easily solved any problem that was difficult for her. How could the powerful Fei Rui turn into a skeleton? Mina didn't believe it at all. Ning Shu put his phone away. "Believe it or not, it's up to you." Ning Shu untied Mina. "Since you don't believe me, you can ask the others." Mina's neck was injured, and just as she was about to turn her head, she screamed in pain and almost cried out. Mina tilted her head and ran out of the room. She wanted to ask the others if Fei Rui had really turned into a skeleton. Mina grabbed someone and asked if Fei Rui had turned into a skeleton. Right now, the vampire hunters were in a state of chaos. There were so many dead and injured. How could he have the time to think about Mina? Moreover, the moment Mina came up, she didn't even ask how her fellow vampire hunters were doing. Instead, he asked how the vampires were doing. It made people feel uncomfortable. Furthermore, this vampire had been lured here by Mina. Hence, Mina asked around, but no one paid any attention to her. Some people were so annoyed by her questions that they directly pushed her away. They said impatiently, "Yes, yes, that unlucky vampire has turned into a skeleton." Mina's behavior was extremely annoying. When Mina found out, she sat on the steps and buried her head in her hands, crying loudly. But soon, Mina was arrested by the inspectors. Mina's actions were undoubtedly betraying the organization. Saying that at the trial was just to make the organization look better. But it didn't mean that Mina was innocent. Mina was locked up again. When Ning Shu found out about Mina's situation, he calmed down and began to cultivate again. Ning Shu didn't remove the Yang gathering formation in the manner. After all, he still needed to rely on the Yang gathering formation to absorb the Yang qi between heaven and earth. Ning Shu crazily absorbed the energy around him. The empty dantian began to slowly fill up. The lava-like energy surged in Ning Shu's energy center. Sure enough, as long as he had power, his heart would be at ease. Ning Shu was cultivating when there was a knock on the door. Ning Shu opened the door and saw that it was the blood hunter inspector. Ning Shu was a little puzzled. Why was the inspector looking for him? "Mina wants to see you. This is her last wish. After that, we will begin the execution," the inspector said coldly. Ning Shu shrugged indifferently. "I'm not going. You can carry out the execution directly. Out of humanitarian spirit, we will fulfill her last request," the inspector said. Ning Shu shrugged. With the degree of hatred Mina had for him, she would hate him to death. She would definitely have resentment. Resentment would affect the world. Maybe Mina would have a chance to counterattack. Ning Shu thought for a while and decided to watch Mina's execution. At the same time, he would destroy Mina's soul. Ning Shu followed the inspector to the confinement room, but there was a large round hole in the door. The inspector's face changed as he looked inside the hole. Sure enough, there was no one there. "Where is she?" The inspector was shocked. Ning Shu asked. How would I know? She is being watched by the people from your supervision department. Ning Shu spread his hands. Ning Shu's face was a little ugly. Mina had disappeared from the manor, and no one had noticed. What was going on? Could it be that she was rescued by someone? I have to report this matter. The inspector ignored Ning Shu. The traitor had escaped. This was a big deal. Ning Shu touched his chin and looked at the confinement room. There were no traces of damage. Mina was locked up inside. Someone had broken a hole in the door and taken Mina away. Ning Shu looked at the thick titanium alloy door. He didn't know what had cut it, and it was cut so round. Ning Shu immediately thought of the ruby ring of the third-generation vampire. Anything that was hit by the light beam emitted from the ruby ring would be annihilated. It was most likely the third-generation vampire who came to save Mina. TSK, TSK, TSK. Didn't they say that they were on par with God? But now they ran away for the couple. He had snuck in to rescue Mina. Did he still have the personality of a third-generation vampire? The 13 blood mansions that all blood breeds feared? What was the relationship between this third-generation vampire and Fei Ruet? Why did they help him so much? One had to know that the third-generation vampire worked together to kill the second-generation vampire. It was impossible to say that the vampires were kind. Dai Lin hurried over. Seeing the hole in the door, she was speechless. Since she ran away, she is no longer a vampire hunter. Ning Shu said, then it's very likely that Mina will be embraced and become a vampire. Dai Lin sneered, so what if she becomes a vampire? I will still kill her. Ning Shu sighed in his heart. Life was not meant to end here. The plot still went as it should. Although there were some deviations in the details, Mina still escaped before the vampires. Ning Shu moved his neck. It seemed that the stronger she was, the better. Chapter 1393. The last time the vampires wreaked havoc in the manor, the vampire hunters had lost many blood hunters. Now that the vampire hunters were short of manpower, many newbies had started to take on missions. Even the leader of the vampire hunters, Dai Lin, had started to take on missions. If missions kept piling up, it would be a fatal blow to the reputation of the vampire hunters. Besides, time was life. If they were late, another life might be lost. Ning Shu had wanted to cultivate peacefully, but Dai Lin had given her a mission to take on newbies. She was to teach them and act as their bodyguard. Ning Shu had no choice but to follow these people to hunt vampires. Ning Shu had thought that after losing so many elite vampires, the vampires would know their place. But he didn't expect them to be so active in private, and many tragic things had happened. Moreover, the number of missing persons had suddenly increased. Now that the vampire hunters were in a precarious situation, Dai Lin had personally told her that it was impossible for her to ignore it. Moreover, Ning Shu had a premonition that the vampires wanted to start a second holy war and let the vampires become saints. The original owner had died early and was torn in half by Fei Rui. She didn't know what happened after that. Ning Shu felt more and more that the plot was incomplete. It was not complete at all. Basically, it only gave the original owner her life experience and the general background of the world. Cindy. Ning Shu carried the box out of the manor and saw two pairs of nervous partners. Obviously, they were nervous and excited for their first mission. This time, Tulu was with them. Ning Shu saw Tulu and greeted him, I'll go with you this time. You have to make sure these four come back. Ning Shu put the box in the trunk and said to the four nervous partners, get in. The four obedient newbies quickly got in. Ning Shu sat in the front passenger seat and asked Tulu, who was driving, where's Casey? He was bitten by a bat and can't go on missions for a long time. I told him not to waste his energy on women, but he didn't listen. Now he's bitten like that. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. Look at how badly you've been bitten. Are you unable to have fun with women? That's not necessarily the case. It's the hand that's injured, and the hand is very important to a blood hunter. Ning Shu nodded. That's right. It's not only important for blood hunters, but also for men. Tulu didn't know what to say, but he started the car and drove off. Ning Shu said to the four obedient children sitting behind him, When you're doing a mission, you have to run if things go wrong. Especially when there's a huge disparity in strength between the two sides, don't fight force with force. If you're not the main character and don't have a golden finger to turn the tables, then don't take it head-on. He was an unkillable cockroach. Even if his intestines were pierced through, he would still be alive and kicking. An ordinary person might just fall and die. People couldn't be compared to each other. Tulu, good baby, Tulu coughed. What Jasmine means is that we need to find the most effective way to do things. If retreating is also a strategy, then we need to retreat. Be subtle, Tulu whispered to Ning Shu. She was asking him to be a deserter. Ning Shu nodded. You can talk to them. Ning Shu simply closed his eyes and began to cultivate. The fiery energy gathered around Ning Shu's body, and the people sitting in the car felt as if they were sitting in a steamer, extremely hot. Tulu, in particular, was sweating like he had just been fished out of water next to Ning Shu. Tulu had seen what Ning Shu was capable of, and he certainly knew that it was because of Ning Shu. Tulu nudged Ning Shu. Take a break. It's so hot. Ning Shu, fine, was it really that hot? Her body must have gotten used to it. Ning Shu didn't absorb the yang energy in the world, but the meager spiritual energy. It shouldn't be too hot to absorb spiritual energy, right? However, Ning Shu was used to absorbing a lot of energy, and the tiniest bit of spiritual energy made Ning Shu feel like he was constipated. However, the people in the car were much more comfortable. Ning Shu gathered spiritual energy, and they felt indescribably comfortable. Ning Shu had been cultivating along the way, and he would occasionally open his eyes to eat. What's our mission this time? Dalin only asked her to follow the newcomers so that they wouldn't die on their first mission. It cost the organization a lot to train these people. It wasn't easy for an organization as large as theirs to make ends meet. Tulu tore into a piece of jerky and glanced at the 4 people. Almost all the people in the town have gone missing. 7 or 8 people go missing every day. I'm afraid that we'll run into the same situation as last time. What are the vampires up to? I suspect that another 3rd-generation vampire is about to awaken. A team was wiped out before, and their bodies are nowhere to be found. The undercurrents are surging. A great battle is inevitable. Our lives are in danger. Lu sighed. Human lives are worthless in this chaotic world. The organization should cooperate with the government. This is a large-scale war, and vampire hunters alone won't be enough. Ning Shu bit into the jerky. Your jerky tastes good. Where did you buy it? Ning Shu chewed the jerky. The more she chewed, the more delicious it became. Tulu looked at Ning Shu helplessly. Are we talking about jerky now? Then what do we do? Are we not going to eat it? We need to protect these eggs as much as we can. They'll be a part of the organization's strength in the future. Ning Shu said. Tulu handed Ning Shu a bottle of water. You have nothing to worry about with your strength. But for us, it's like ants in front of a flood. Not to mention ants, even humans would face the same situation when facing a flood. Ning Shu hammered his chest. I'm even more worried than you are. But what can we do? We have to work hard to become stronger. On the other side, the 4 obedient children came over to ask questions. They asked about some of the problems they would encounter during the mission. Tulu answered them patiently. Sometimes he would even test them. Ning Shu propped up his chin and looked at the sky. He was thinking about Mina's current situation. Would he stay by Fei Rue's side like Skeleton? Would he stay by Fei Rue's side? Perhaps the next time they met, her and Mina's identities would be blood hunters and vampires. He wondered if the misunderstanding between Fei Rue and Mina had been resolved. In any case, true love could conquer everything. Hopefully, before the misunderstanding was resolved, the 2 of them could have a passionate love affair. Hate you for torturing you, love you for enduring torment. Ning Shu felt his blood boil just thinking about it. But Fei Rue was only a skeleton right now. How could he have sex with Fei Rue? Even if Fei Rue had regrown his skin, he wouldn't be able to do it right away. Ning Shu felt his train of thought strayed. Why was he thinking about the 2 of them having sex? Chapter 1394. The group of 6 set off for the mission location. Last time, it was a remote town. This time, it was actually a bustling city. The vampires were already so arrogant, they even dared to do this in the city. It was so blatant. It completely violated the previous rule of the vampires to avoid the world. As humans gradually dominated the world, the vampires, especially Cain's grandson, fell into a deep sleep in order to survive. Coupled with the medieval church's purge of heretics, the number of vampires was greatly reduced. Generally, they wouldn't commit crimes in densely populated areas. Such a large-scale case of missing people. Ning Shu didn't need to think with his toes to think that it had something to do with the vampires. Ning Shu suspected that the vampires wanted to awaken the third-generation vampires. He really couldn't figure out why the vampires would do such a thing. If the third-generation vampires were to intervene in the affairs of the current generation of blood breeds, they would never let it go. For these ancient vampires, the descendants of the blood breeds were all puppets. One word from them could turn the blood breeds upside down. It could be said that the third-generation vampires were actually taboo for the blood breeds. Why would they wake up now? Not only were humans suffering, but even vampires could be unlucky. Of course, there were vampires who madly worshipped the third-generation vampires. The 6 of them found a hotel to stay in. Ning Shu stood by the window, holding his chin and thinking, where were the missing people taken to this time? Vampires slept in coffins. The last one was found in the church. What about this time? Could it be in a cemetery? Cemeteries were very suitable for creatures like vampires. Ning Shu took a piece of paper and folded it into a paper crane. He cut his finger and drew a talisman on the paper crane. He didn't succeed after several attempts. The wound had clotted, and Ning Shu had to squeeze the wound to squeeze the blood out. It was so torturous. The ground was littered with discarded paper cranes. Ning Shu was going crazy. He finally succeeded. Ning Shu placed the paper crane in his palm. The paper crane flapped its wings and flew out of the window. This talisman was very difficult. Ning Shu almost exhausted all the energy in his dantian to give a dead object the ability to fly. It required a huge amount of energy. Ning Shu immediately sat cross-legged on the ground and began cultivating. He set up a small yang congregating array. This paper crane could temporarily help to find people. As long as he knew the general direction, he could slowly search for it. Ning Shu absorbed the fire yang energy. Fortunately, it was summer, and the sun in the sky was also energy. Ning Shu felt that he had adapted to the heat. One day, he would be so awesome that he could embrace the sun. The next morning, the paper crane flew back and landed in Ning Shu's palm. Ning Shu put away the paper crane and said to Tulu and the 4 newbie eggs, "The missing people should be in the graveyard." "There are so many graveyards. Who knows where it is?" Tulu asked. Ning Shu said, "We're definitely looking for the oldest and oldest tombs. I've already investigated it. I'll go now." They got into the car and headed to the cemetery in the city. Ning Shu followed the paper crane's information and arrived at a relatively remote cemetery in the city. There weren't many people around this place. One had to know that the West was more eccentric. There were people living in a cemetery nearby. Unlike the eerie ones in the East, the West tombs were mysterious, romantic, and beautiful. It wouldn't be strange at all if they came to a cemetery while walking. This cemetery was desolate and gloomy. There was the sound of strange birds chirping on the branches. The leaves were lush, and there was no telling where the birds were. It was quite scary. Ning Shu stopped the car. "It should be here." Tulu took out a scanner. A light appeared on the screen. "It's really here." The 4 newbies were so nervous that they trembled. Their faces were flushed. "Now, take out your weapons," Tulu said to them. The 4 of them hurriedly took out different weapons. Some of them were holding silver swords, some were holding crossbows, and some were holding holy water. Tulu didn't say anything. He just stared at the scanner. Finally, they stopped in front of a grave. The grave would have looked very strange if it weren't for the shabby cross. It didn't look like a cemetery at all. Tulu whispered to Ning Shu, "It should be inside. There are no other vampires around here." Ning Shu nodded and formed a hand seal to set up a yang gathering formation. It would weaken the vampires who had just woken up. They didn't know if it was a vampire sleeping under the grave. If it wasn't, they would have dug the wrong grave. Ning Shu smiled at the 4 newbies. Let's dig. It was their first time on a mission, so they did as they were told. Even if they had any objections, they couldn't say anything. He took out the shovel from the box and began to dig the grave. Ning Shu was making hand seals at the side. Tulu held silver arrowheads and a crossbow that was soaked in holy water. The 4 newbies dug a very deep grave. It took them a while to reach the coffin. There was also a nauseating smell of blood in the air. I'll do it. Ning Shu took the shovel and wiped off the dirt on the coffin. Beneath the coffin was a stone slab, an extremely flat slab. Ning Shu pushed away the dirt and saw complicated patterns. It wasn't like the pentagrams from before. It was probably a 3rd-generation vampire. Also, the coffin was very glamorous, with roses carved on it. Ning Shu patted the dust off his hands and pushed the coffin open. The coffin was very heavy. Ning Shu could only push it open slowly. After moving the coffin away, Ning Shu covered her nose and looked into the coffin. A man was lying in the coffin. The man's hair was slicked back, and his hands were on his stomach. His skin was extremely pale, and there was a bright rose in the chest pocket of his glamorous suit. There was no telling what the rose was made of, but it didn't wither or wither. It was extremely bright, as if it had been poured with blood. The man suddenly opened his bloodshot eyes. Ning Shu said something that was hard to understand. Ning Shu, that fuck, I don't understand again. However, the vampire didn't care whether Ning Shu could understand or not. He reached out his hand and tried to suck Ning Shu's blood into the coffin. Ning Shu hurriedly dodged and made hand seals, using talismans to suppress him. The vampire in the coffin couldn't move, but the spell only lasted for a moment before it was broken. At Yen% and the vampire stared at Ning Shu with his bloodshot eyes. Being stared at by him like this, Ning Shu's body suddenly turned cold. It was as if an animal had met its natural enemy and was being targeted by something extremely dangerous. Ning Shu quickly made a hand seal, and a talisman immobilized the vampire. Give me the silver sword. Ning Shu shouted. Tulu was the first to react. He picked up the silver sword and tossed it to Ning Shu. Ning Shu bit his finger and drew a spell on the silver sword. When the spell was broken, Ning Shu stabbed the sword into the vampire's heart. Chapter 1395. The flames on the silver sword burned fiercely, and the face of the vampire who was stabbed in the heart was a bit hideous. Showing his sharp teeth, Ning Shu roared, and the surrounding wind started to blow. Ning Shu's face was wavy from the wind. The vampire's sharp claws grabbed Ning Shu's hand, but Ning Shu didn't let go. With the blood flowing out of his hand, Ning Shu drew a talisman on the vampire's body. When the blood came into contact with the vampire's face, it made sizzling sounds. The vampire roared fiercely. Ning Shu released a huge fire dragon. The fire dragon roared silently at the sky and fiercely slammed into the coffin. With a loud bang, a huge wave of wind was created. Ning Shu felt bitter. Damn, the vampire's vitality was really tenacious. If it was any other vampire, the silver sword would be able to deal with it, but it was already like this. This vampire still wasn't dead. I might have used a fake silver sword. And her body was already covered in wounds from the vampire's claws. The fire dragon hit the vampire in the coffin again and again. The surrounding 5 people looked at Ning Shu, who was in the center of the hurricane, in fear. The huge impact made it impossible for them to do anything, and it was useless for them to go up. Tulu's face was ugly. These vampires were so powerful. If they all woke up, wouldn't the humans be finished? Ning Shu held the silver sword tightly with one hand and drew a talisman with the other, and froze the vampire in place. Then he drew another talisman on the silver sword, and the flames on the silver sword became more vigorous. The vampire roared fiercely and said something that Ning Shu couldn't understand. Ning Shu's face was cold. He pulled out the silver sword and then heavily stabbed it into the vampire's heart. Under the fire dragon's powerful yang energy, the vampire gradually turned into nothingness. The roar was full of unwillingness and anger. The silver sword was nailed to the coffin, and there was a bright rose. The rose was still fresh and tender even after being roasted by the fire Yang-Chi. Ning Shu put the roses into his bosom and pulled out the silver sword with all his might. However, he had used too much strength. The silver sword had been inserted into the coffin, and he could not pull it out now. Ning Shu was too lazy to pull it out. He said to the stunned people, "Give me a hand." Tulu pulled Ning Shu out of the hole. The other four ran to pull out the silver sword. Silver sword was so powerful, but it had killed such a powerful vampire. Who knew how much it would be worth in the future? Ning Shu sat on the ground. His hands and legs were trembling because he had used too much strength. It was soft and powerless. Fortunately, the vampires had just woken up. If they had waited any longer, they would not have been able to solve the problem. He was mentally exhausted. The four rookies worked together to pull out the silver sword, but no one dared to take it for themselves. Instead, they gave the silver sword to Ning Shu. Ning Shu handed it to Tulu. "I've drawn a charm on it. It's strong enough. Take it." Tulu did not refuse. "Thank you. If you need my help, I'll be sure to help." As soon as the matter was settled, a group of vampires arrived. Seeing that the grave had been dug up, and that the grave was empty, he immediately turned pale with fright. Ning Shu leaned against the tree. She was physically and mentally exhausted. She was too lazy to move now. These were all ordinary vampires. Tulu and the others could take care of them. The vampires were clamoring for them to hand over the person in the coffin. They fought without saying a word. Ning Shu drew a charm and destroyed some of the vampires. She then left the rest to Tulu and the others. The four rookies still needed training. The four newbies were flustered. The four of them couldn't even deal with one vampire. Ning Shu paid attention to the situation. If anything went wrong, she would intervene. Ning Shu rubbed her forehead. She was exhausted. Tulu was a seasoned veteran, and now he had a silver sword to draw talismans. Basically, he could stab a vampire in the heart, and then he would be finished off. It took a while for the vampires to be taken care of. The four rookies sat on the ground, their faces pale. Then they threw up together. It was their first time killing a vampire, but they were still not used to it. After cremating the vampire's body, the six rookies returned to the hotel. Ning Shu took out the rose she had hidden in her room. She sniffed it. It smelled like roses. There was a dewdrop on the bud. It was like a flower that had just been picked in the morning. What was this? It looked like the vampire had been sleeping for a long time. The rose had not withered or rotted. It was amazing. It had to be a treasure. Ning Shu told 2333 to put it away. There was nothing wrong with collecting treasures. Ning Shu asked 2333, "Do you know what this is?" "There are billions of worlds. There are too many treasures. I can't know them all," 2333 said. Ning Shu did not say anything. Ever since he knew 2333 was a human, Ning Shu did not have much hope for 2333. He thought 2333 was an AI system. It must have a database. It should know everything. Ning Shu was more forgiving now that he knew it was a human. After all, humans were not perfect or omnipotent. They had flaws and weaknesses. Ning Shu told 2333 to put the rose in the system space. Ning Shu lay on the bed for a while. Then, he sat cross-legged on the bed and began to cultivate. Ning Shu was anxious. It seemed that the third-generation vampires who were struck by God's flood were still alive. They were waking up one after another. If they woke up, the holy war would break out. Ning Shu was almost certain that the person he killed in the graveyard was a third-generation vampire. If it was an ordinary vampire, it would not have been so powerful that it drained her of all her energy. Furthermore, they had the advantage of time and place, and had managed to kill the vampires with great difficulty. The West was a big place. He knew where the third-generation vampires were hibernating. Not every vampire was so unlucky. He wasn't so lucky every time he encountered a third-generation vampire when he was at his weakest. Ning Shu set up a yang gathering formation and began to cultivate through the night. He needed to become stronger. The next morning, Tulu came to tell Ning Shu that he needed to go back to the organization immediately. The organization was short of manpower. If it was before, he could go out and rest after completing a mission. But now he had to go back. Especially this mission, he had to report it. Tulu was driving the car. He was speechless. What kind of luck do we have? This is the second time we've run into this. Ning Shu shrugged. I think all the vampire activity is because of the awakening of the third-generation vampires. Ning Shu shrugged. If something happens, it's probably because of the awakening of the third-generation vampires. Tulu sighed. A storm is coming. Everything was going well, but it's going to fall into chaos again. Chapter 1396. As soon as Ning Shu returned to the manor, someone called him to Dalin's room. Ning Shu carried his toolbox and went to find Dalin. Walking into the room, Ning Shu smelled a strong smell of blood and medicine. Ning Shu saw Dalin lying on the bed, one of her arms gone. Ning Shu hurriedly put down the toolbox and walked over to ask, "How did this happen?" Dalin's face was extremely pale and her lips were bloodless. Dalin said, "I was caught by a vampire." Did a third-generation vampire wake up? Ning Shu asked. Otherwise, with Dalin's strength, ordinary vampires couldn't do anything to her. She was a light magician. The organization's holy water was the magic she released. Except for the third-generation vampires, Ning Shu couldn't think of anyone who could hurt Dalin. Dalin hummed weakly. She had woken up and couldn't stop it. A holy war was inevitable. Use my name to send an email to the leaders of various countries. We still have to tell them about this matter and make preparations in advance, Dalin said. Ning Shu nodded. Seeing a computer on the table, he turned it on. Dalin spoke, and Ning Shu typed and sent the email. Ning Shu looked at Dalin's arm. Losing an arm had a great impact on her strength. Ning Shu held Dalin's hand, injected some spiritual energy into her body, and said, "Get well quickly. The vampire hunters need you." Dalin looked at Ning Shu and said, "Take care of the vampire hunters while I'm recuperating." Ning Shu hummed. Dalin closed her eyes to rest because of excessive blood loss. Ning Shu stared at the wrapped arm. The whole arm had been dislocated and separated from the body. In addition, in the situation at the time, there was no way to treat it in time. How painful it was to have her arm torn off like this. Although she was doing this for the sake of the vampire hunters, she was also doing this for the sake of humanity. There was no right or wrong, just survival. Vampires believed that their race was superior and should enslave humans like food. Just like how humans enslaved livestock. If humans wanted to survive, they could only resist. It was just that during the resistance, countless people had been sacrificed. It was all about survival. Ning Shu tucked Dai Lin in and went out with the computer and toolbox. After that, he announced that blood hunters should no longer take on missions alone. Since all the countries had received the news, they would definitely take measures to cooperate with each other. It was impossible to rely on vampire hunters. No matter how much money they paid the vampire hunters, if they couldn't stop them, they couldn't stop them. Ning Shu returned to his room and turned on his computer. There were a lot of emails. Someone had replied to the emails that had been sent out previously. Many people complained that they had given the vampire hunters so much money, yet they were still unable to solve such a small problem. I doubt that there is any need for an organization like yours to exist. Ning Shu was speechless. If you have the ability to fight vampires, then go catch vampires yourself. Why are you blabbering on and on here? Ning Shu replied with 4 words, "Believe it or not, it's up to you." Anyway, he had already said it. The lives of blood hunters were also lives. He couldn't use the lives of blood hunters to pay for it. The army had advanced weapons and had an advantage against vampires. Ning Shu took the opportunity to ask for some of the most recent advanced weapons. After much persuasion, he was finally given some. Blood hunters also had guns and ammunition, but against vampires, guns and ammunition were useless. They still had to rely on their attributes. Holy water was a spell that Dai Lin had released, which had the power to restrain vampires. Now that Dai Lin was injured, she couldn't release magic. Ning Su thought for a moment and issued a document for all the blood hunters to turn in their silver swords. She drew a charm. Silver could originally restrain vampires, but if a charm was added to it, under the enhancement of the power of the sun, the charm's lethality was even stronger. Soon, the people below collected all the silver swords. And it was done very quickly. Ning Shu really didn't expect it to be so fast. So cooperative? Ning Shu went to the Manor's restaurant for dinner and met Tulu and Casey. Casey's arm was wrapped in gauze and hung in front of his chest. Everyone hopes to have a silver sword like me. When those 4 new recruits came back, they spread the news about you like it was a miracle. Tulu said to Ning Shu with a smile. Ning Shu. He had thought that the Blood Hunter organization was very efficient, but it turned out to be this. After eating 4 super big burgers and drinking a glass of milk, Ning Shu was ready to go back and draw talismans. Pushing the door open, he saw the silver swords piled up half the room. He really brought this on himself. Ning Shu took out a silver bowl, cut his hand, and squeezed blood into the bowl. Her blood contained the power of the sun, which was the last thing he could use to draw talismans. However, his body was full of yang energy. Ning Shu was really afraid that his chest would become chest muscles, and he would grow a beard. Blood dripped into the silver bowl, billowing smoke. Ning Shu. Was her blood sulfuric acid? He was on the verge of bursting into flames. Ning Shu grimaced and squeezed out half a bowl of blood. Then, Ning Shu picked up the silver sword on the ground, dipped it in blood, and mobilized the energy in his body to draw talismans. Ning Shu worked day and night. After staying up for a few nights, she finally finished drawing all the silver swords. At this moment, Ning Shu had dark circles under his eyes, his hair was curly, and his face was pale. After finishing, he felt so weak, very weak. Ning Shu made a call and asked someone to move these things away. During this period, she had bled several times. She thought that half a bowl would be enough, but it turned out that it wasn't. The person in charge who received the call immediately came. When he saw Ning Shu, he greeted him and then immediately asked someone to move the things away. He said to Ning Shu, "Thank you." Ning Shu was expressionless. "Thank you." After finishing her work, Ning Shu ate a bowl of pig blood noodles and fell into a deep sleep. She was going to die. Ning Shu slept soundly in the house. The blood hunters who received the silver swords with talismans drawn by Ning Shu carried the silver swords on their backs every day. They didn't let go even when they were eating or sleeping. It was as if having this thing gave them a sense of security. Ning Shu slept for a day and a night. When she woke up, she hurriedly sat cross-legged and began to cultivate. Wasting time was wasting life. Even if Ning Shu didn't go out, someone would deliver food to the door. And every time, it was 5 super big burgers and a big bottle of yogurt. Ning Shu didn't stand on ceremony and ate it all, so that she didn't have to go to the restaurant. Either Tulu or Casey knew that she ate so much. While eating, Ning Shu activated the GPS system to check where Fei Rui and Mina were. These 2 people were always a thorn in Ning Shu's heart. Ning Shu turned on the GPS system, but it couldn't be used. He had to pay 5 merit points. Ning Shu was so angry that she almost stomped on the super burger. What the hell? 5 merit points for locating? It didn't cost merit points before? What do you mean, what do you mean? Ning Shu roared. Chapter 1397. It was true that the sky had changed after one night of sleep. Since when did the GPS require merit points? Bullshit. 2333 said, the GPS has restrictions. You've already used up all the free uses. If you use it again, you'll have to pay merit points. Ning Shu, why not power of faith? The GPS can locate people. How can such a heaven-defying skill be used for free? It's the same with merit points or power of faith. Bullshit. Ning Shu felt like she had lived for a long time. Do I have to spend 5 merit points to locate them? 2333 asked. There's no point in being angry. The mainframe system is such a bullshit. Ning Shu felt like she was very strong. She said firmly, no. Spending 5 merit points to locate Fei Rui and Mina, She was the one who had overestimated herself. They would definitely meet. After all, Fei Rui and Mina were both taken advantage of by her. They would definitely get back at her. Plus, their identities were on opposite sides. There would be many opportunities for them to meet in the future. Ning Shu also suspected that Fei Rui wasn't dead. Don't ask why. Intuition. And according to the law of protagonists, how could Fei Rui die? Maybe a drop of blood could bring him back to life. Ning Shu was full of resentment as she gnawed on her burger. Back then, she had spent 5 merit points to install the GPS. Now, she had to spend merit points. Merit points. She might not get 5 merit points in a world, but a GPS location cost 5 merit points. Why didn't she go to heaven? If it was 5 merit points, Ning Shu wouldn't even blink. After eating her burger, Ning Shu continued to cultivate. She had eaten so much, but all the energy was absorbed by her dantian. Ning Shu looked at the lava-like energy in her dantian. There was a fire dragon swimming inside. Ning Shu was very satisfied. She was getting more and more motivated. She sat cross-legged and continued to cultivate. This world was too dangerous. Plus, Dai Lin was injured. She had to take care of the vampire hunters for now. She couldn't let anything happen to the vampire hunters. At least the original owner had a safe place to live. Even if there wasn't a place where one could live peacefully, as long as one had great strength, anywhere would be a place where one could live peacefully. Ning Shu was in the middle of cultivating when an urgent alarm sounded in the manor. Ning Shu quickly stopped cultivating and went to the square. There were many people in the square. The blood hunters were all looking at the vampires warily. Ning Shu looked at the group of vampires who were dressed as if they were attending a funeral. They were too arrogant to barge into the manor in broad daylight. Ning Shu looked at the leader of the vampires. He was wearing a gorgeous suit, and beside him stood a delicate girl. Seeing these two people, Ning Shu's pupils shrank. Fuck, isn't this Fei Rui and Mina? Fei Rui wasn't just a skeleton anymore. He was as good as new. Ning Shu wanted to kneel down and ask what the method was and how it was done. Mina's face was a little pale. Under the sunlight, she frowned and seemed a little uncomfortable. She was holding a lace umbrella. Based on these observations, Ning Shu was sure that Mina had been embraced. Why didn't he see the scene of these two loving and killing each other? Sure enough, true love could overcome everything. Ning Shu straightened his chest and slowly walked over. When the blood hunters saw Ning Shu, they all breathed a sigh of relief and made way for Ning Shu. Molly, you're here, Casey said to Ning Shu, who was standing in front of the blood hunters. Mina might have been embraced. Ning Shu nodded. They stood opposite a group of vampires. With Ning Shu standing in front of them, the blood hunters present seemed to have a lot more confidence. Ning Shu said to Tulu, "Go tell Dalin not to come over. I can handle this." Tulu nodded and immediately left. Mina, who was wearing beautiful gloves and holding an umbrella, stared at Ning Shu. She stared straight at Ning Shu. Seeing Ning Shu's status among the blood hunters, she felt indignant and mocked. "Molly, I didn't expect you to be so impressive. Do the others know who you are?" Stepping on other people's shoulders to climb up, despicable and shameless. Ning Shu picked his ear. "Whose shoulder did I step on? Didn't you just step on your partner's shoulder and betray him?" Mina said angrily. Ning Shu's expression was indifferent. He spread his hands and said, "You've already done it and you won't let me talk about it. So what if I reported you? Your small shoulders can't support my feet at all. Stepping on your shoulders to climb up, you think too highly of yourself." Fei Rui sneered. "You're still so annoying, sharp-tongued and ugly." Ning Shu spread his hands. Fine. You're the only one who's beautiful. Even your asshole has double eyelids." Fei Rui's face twisted in anger. He pointed at Ning Shu. He couldn't form a complete sentence for a long time. The blood hunters all sneered and chuckled. "Vulgar and disgusting," Mina said with disdain. "My words are just a little disgusting, but not as disgusting as your actions. You betrayed the organization, yet you still act like you're innocent and wronged, yet you still want to kill me. That's disgusting. Now that you're a vampire who can't see the light of day, You think the identity of a vampire suits you. Sleeping in a coffin and hiding in a dark corner. You want to raise morale by arguing? Bring it on. Mina looked at Ning Shu with disdain. Her gaze was like that of a frog at the bottom of a well. Do you know how many humans want to become vampires? Do you know that they serve vampires for immortality and wealth? The blood hunters protect humans, but humans want to become vampires. Ning Shu smiled, revealing his white teeth. Although I don't want to make myself sound so great, the purpose of our existence is to protect those ignorant humans who don't know the truth. To prevent them from being killed by vampires without knowing it. We protect these people, not those humans who worship vampires. With the awakening of the third generation of vampires, many people have died in ignorance. Vampires extract great power from blood. It's not that this world doesn't have evil and dark clouds, but that there are people blocking them. To be able to live in peace and stability, it depends on the dedication of some people. Country, soldiers, Ning Shu straightened his chest. I'm proud of being a blood hunter. I'm proud of protecting humans. I'm proud of living a happy life. The blood hunters behind Ning Shu also straightened their chests like Ning Shu. Mina's face turned ugly. She said with disdain, no matter how nice your words sound, you're still a despicable and shameless person. You're trying to drive a wedge between us. Ning Shu said indifferently, in my opinion, you're a selfish and heartless person. That's enough. Don't waste your breath. Today, we'll eliminate the blood hunters. Fei Rui pushed Mina behind him. His bloodshot eyes stared sharply at Ning Shu. Chapter 1398. Fei Rui looked at Ning Shu with eyes full of disgust. Ning Shu had crippled Fei Rui previously, and the only reason Fei Rui was able to recover was because of his strong willpower. With the help of a third-generation vampire, Fei Rui was able to recover to his peak condition. Moreover, Fei Rui had profited from his misfortune and become much stronger. Fei Rui immediately brought a large group of people to take revenge and wash away the humiliation. Fei Rui had been beaten to such a state in front of so many people last time, and he had been reduced to a skeleton. This was even more embarrassing than taking off his clothes in front of everyone. In addition, Fei Rui had been scolded by Ning Shu previously, so he was even more furious. He was about to take action. Mina looked at Ning Shu. You're really a frog at the bottom of a well. The strength of the blood breeds is not something you can imagine. Mina had only understood the strength of the blood breeds during her time in the blood breeds. When she was a vampire hunter, her understanding of the blood breeds was only the tip of the iceberg. A true vampire was much stronger than what they appeared to be. Ning Shu said indifferently, I've never doubted the strength of the blood breeds, but what does their strength have to do with me? You barged into the manor in broad daylight. Didn't you just come back to show off and show off? Mina, you're already a sinner of the vampire hunters. Now that you've become a vampire, your crime is clear. Do you think the blood breeds will tolerate you just because you betrayed the organization that raised you? Today, you fell in love with a vampire, so you betrayed the vampire hunters. If you fall in love with a human one day, will you disregard the rules of the vampire hunters again? Oh, I forgot. You've always been such a willful person. Ning Shu's mouth was like a machine gun, talking nonstop. Mina looked at Fei Rui carefully and said to Ning Shu angrily, Molly, don't try to drive a wedge between us. The person I like is Fei Rui. It's always been Fei Rui. Ning Shu did not believe her. You'll only love Fei Rui for your entire life? Ning Shu waved his hand. Don't joke around. Do you dare to swear that you'll only love Fei Rui for the rest of your life? That you'll never get tired of him? You vampires have a long, long life. You have to look at the same face every day and spend a long, long time with each other, and there's no end to it. Tiskese, just thinking about it makes me feel despair. New clothes look good and beautiful, but people don't like old clothes when they're old. Endless days, with one person, all love will be worn away by the passing of time. Come, tell me loudly. Shout to the sky that you'll always love Fei Rui. You'll never tire. You'll make Fei Rui smile so adorably every day. Ning Shu lifted her chin at Mina. Swear, you two are truly in love. Mina's mouth fell open. Fei Rui's face was extremely ugly. His face was already pale, but now it was ashen. His eyes were so red that they were dripping blood. What's the point of talking to her? Just kill her. Fei Rui waved his hand at the vampires behind him. Perhaps he was wary of Ning Shu's talisman, but the arrogant Ning Shu said, "Let's fight." He then turned to Mina and said, "Stand aside." Fei Rui, be careful, Mina said to Fei Rui with concern, but in her heart, she felt that Ning Shu was no match for Fei Rui. Mina did not have a direct understanding of Ning Shu's strength, even though Fei Rui had once said that Ning Shu was strong. But Mina's impression of Ning Shu was that of an ordinary blood hunter. He was just a little better than her at hunting. How could he be considered strong? In the previous battle, Mina had been knocked unconscious by Ning Shu and tied up. Mina still hoped that Fei Rui would avenge her. Molly had mocked her time and time again, teasing her. Molly had betrayed her, sowed discord between her and Fei Rui, and stepped on her shoulders to get to where she was today. What a shameless bitch. Fei Rui's expression was somewhat dignified. Even though he was much stronger than Jiqiang, he still did not dare to relax. Even if he could not deal with this woman today, he had to kill all the blood hunters, so that there would be no blood hunters left. The Blood Hunter organization would become history. The vampires brought by Fei Rui attacked the ordinary blood hunters. Sharp nails grew out of their fingers, and they were as hard as iron. The blood hunters raised their silver swords, not to be outdone, and met the vampires head-on. As long as the silver swords hit the vampires, they would be injured, causing the vampires' bodies to sizzle and emit white smoke. It would also cause the vampires great pain. Ning Shu watched with a smile. Sure enough, the strength of the buff was not as simple as 1 + 1. Instead, it increased exponentially. Fei Rui frowned as he saw the elite vampires he brought being injured by ordinary humans. Would the result be the same this time? Fei Rui's mouth twitched as he raised his hand. On his finger, there was a ruby ring. The ruby ring shot out a beam of light towards a blood hunter. The blood hunter that was hit by the light was immediately extinguished, and even the silver swords in his hands disappeared. This time, it was Ning Shu's turn to be ugly. Ning Shu cast a spell and formed a huge talisman. When Fei Rui saw the talisman, he immediately used the ruby beam to illuminate it. Because the talisman was powerful, it was not extinguished immediately. However, its energy was getting thinner and thinner. In the end, it was still extinguished. Fearing that Ning Shu would use another spell from the east, Fei Rui did not use the ruby ring to aim at the other blood hunters. Ning Shu and Fei Rui maintained a strange peace as they watched the battle between the vampires and the blood hunters. Ning Shu stared at the ring on Fei Rui's finger. Didn't this ring belong to the third-generation vampire? How did it end up in Fei Rui's hands? Could it be that the third-generation vampire lent it to him? Wasn't he afraid of not returning such a good item? Ning Shu rubbed his chin. Could it be that Fei Rui was the illegitimate son of that vampire? Ning Shu's eyes darted around. His gaze swept across Mina and Fei Rui's bodies, and a strange thought appeared in his mind. That was, Fei Rui had killed the third-generation vampire. Otherwise, how could Fei Rui recover so well? The blood of a third-generation vampire contained boundless energy. It could be described as God's blood. Previously, when Fei Rui was injured, it was the third-generation vampire who used his blood to keep him alive. Ning Shu suspected that Fei Rui had sucked all of the third-generation vampire's blood, which was why he could recover in such a short period of time. Moreover, his aura was much stronger than before. Other than this explanation, Ning Shu could not think of any other explanation. Ning Shu felt that he might have guessed the truth. In fact, Fei Rui and Mina were the same type of people. They were both selfish people. On the surface, the two's great love touched the world. However, other than themselves and the other party, they would not care about anything else. They would never think that they were wrong. Chapter 1399. Ning Shu's guess was basically the truth. But something complicated happened during this period of time. Under Fei Rui's pleas, the third-generation vampire secretly went to the Blood Hunters and rescued Mina, bringing her to the Blood Clan. When Mina was brought to the Blood Clan, she saw Fei Rui sleeping in a coffin. He was just a skeleton and she cried her eyes out. Mina was not liked by women, but she was definitely liked by men. After a period of time, the third-generation vampire knelt before Mina's charm. So the third-generation vampire also fell in love with Mina. He confessed to Mina beside Fei Rui's coffin. Mina looked confused and innocent, and blabbered that the person she liked was Fei Rui. The third-generation vampire said that Fei Rui's injuries were too serious, and whether he could survive was a problem. The third-generation vampire wanted to give Mina the embrace. The person who was embraced by the third-generation vampire had a very high status. They were even nobler than some of the current princes and lords. But who was Mina? She was mighty and mighty. The one I love is Fei Rui. Fei Rui, who was lying in the coffin, was furious. You actually want my woman? Although I let you save her, it doesn't mean you can do that. So, Fei Rui caught the third-generation vampire by surprise and bit his neck. Gulp, 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 drink the blood of third-generation vampires. Don't ask why the third-generation vampire was so weak. In front of the protagonist, even a god would kneel down. Plus, Fei Rui was injured now. He had to find a suitable reason for Fei Rui to suck the third-generation vampire's blood. The third-generation vampire wanted to take advantage of him when he was seriously injured to cheat on him. No man could tolerate this kind of thing. Fei Rui directly sucked the third-generation vampire's blood dry, obtained the blood's power, and repaired his body. He snatched the ring of the third-generation vampire and annihilated the third-generation vampire. Not even a trace of him was left. After Fei Rui recovered, the first thing he did was to embrace Mina. He wanted Mina to become his prey and belong to him alone. Mina pitifully explained to Fei Rui what had happened. Fei Rui had forgiven Mina, but no one knew what he was thinking. Then, Fei Rui brought a bunch of vampires to take revenge. Fei Rui raised his hand towards Ning Shu, and Ning Shu shot out a beam of light from his ring. Ning Shu quickly dodged. His body and soul would be destroyed. It was too terrifying. He didn't know what it was. With Fei Rui's trump card, Ning Shu could only form hand seals to defend himself. However, the talisman couldn't last for long. Moreover, it would exhaust all of the energy in his body. If he really exhausted all of his energy, he would be like a fish on a chopping board. However, Fei Rui's ring made it impossible for Ning Shu to get close to Fei Rui. It directly annihilated the person, turning him into something the size of a molecule. Even his soul no longer existed. He was deader than dead. That was too much. Mina was a little surprised that Ning Shu could form such a powerful talisman. However, after seeing Ning Shu being beaten up by Fei Rui, she couldn't help but be shocked. Fei Rui, on the other hand, was as still as a mountain, forcing her into such a sorry state. He only knew how to talk nonsense. He didn't have any skills. Mina couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh with a look of disdain. She thought that he was strong. Ning Shu ignored Mina's disdain and laughed all she wanted. It would be best if she laughed until her teeth fell out. Damn, if he didn't have this ring, Ning Shu would definitely fight it out with Fei Rui. Ning Shu didn't dare to take the risk and use his body to defend against the ruby. So what if you have equipment? Although I don't have wait, Ning Shu suddenly remembered that he had picked up a rose. That rose was very fresh. Ning Shu dodged the beam of light from the ruby ring and said to 2333, "Hurry up and give me the rose." A rose appeared in Ning Shu's hand behind his back. Ning Shu clenched her fist and took out the roses. He didn't know what this rose could do, but it had to be a treasure to be able to stay so fresh for so long. Moreover, this rose belonged to the blood breeds. It might be able to counter Fei Rui's ring. He wanted to treat a dead horse as if it were still alive. Mina saw Ning Shu take out a rose and couldn't help but laugh. "Molly, why are you taking this out? Did some man give it to you? Who would like a woman like you?" Ning Shu glanced at Mina. "You just have a man who likes you. What's there to be proud of? Other than being liked by men, what else do you have?" You have a lot of things, but you don't even have a man's love. How sad. If no man loves you, no one will love you. Ning Shu smiled and put the rose on the tip of her nose to smell it. I don't care if others love me or not. Can I force them to love me? Besides, I can do whatever I want. Why do I need others to love me? Ning Shu had always felt that it was strange. Why did not being loved become a weakness for others to attack? Why did it become an extremely sad existence? You're loved, but I don't see you being so awesome. The value of your existence is to make others like you. The value of my existence is to make those who hate me feel helpless. I like it when you hate me, but you can't do anything to me. You're so sharp-tongued. I hate you so much, Mi Na said hatefully. Ning Shu smiled. He liked Mi Na's current attitude very much. If you have the ability, come and hit me. Come on. If you don't have the ability to talk, then you can't win an argument. Mi Na looked down on Ning Shu and took out a rose. Fei Rui's expression was a little hesitant as he stared at the rose in Ning Shu's hand. It's from the Torito clan. Fei Rui stared at the rose, unable to move his eyes away. There were 13 Blood Clan clans, and each clan had a different emblem. The Torito clan's emblem was a rose, and they were called the Rose Clan. They were the most beautiful people in the Blood Clan, and they were gentlemen who sought beauty the most. But that was not important. What was important was that this rose was a treasure. Hand it over. It's from the Blood Clan. Fei Rui stretched out his hand. Ning Shu was speechless. I'll give it to you just because you said so. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Who said it's from the Blood Clan? It's in my hands now, so it's mine. What proof do you have that it's yours? Be a little shameless. Ning Shu did not expect Fei Rui to be so shameless as to ask for it. He was speechless. Fei Rui's face was cold. This belongs to the Blood Clan. It should be returned to the Blood Clan. Otherwise, I won't rest until I'm dead. Ning Shu waved the rose. Then I won't rest until I'm dead. Shameless thing, everything is yours. Chapter 1400. Fei Rui's red eyes stared at the rose in Ning Shu's hand. The roses looked even more vibrant under the sunlight, and the dew on the roses shone brightly. It was very beautiful. Even Mina fell in love with the rose. The more she looked at it, the more she liked it. It was different from normal roses. It seemed to have a magical quality. Even Jasmine, who was holding the rose, looked much prettier. It was very charming. Mina bit her lip and said to Fei Rui, "This rose is so beautiful." Girls all liked beautiful things, especially those in fresh flowers. Fei Rui said, "This belongs to the blood race." Ning Shu saw Fei Rui staring at her roses, his eyes filled with desire. It seemed that this was something good. Even Fei Rui wanted it so shamelessly. Ning Shu breathed in the rose's fragrance exaggeratedly. It smells so good. Fei Rui frowned and raised his hand. Ning Shu shot out a ray of annihilation light. Ning Shu immediately dodged. Fei Rui heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Ning Shu didn't know how to use the rose. Ning Shu had been observing Fei Rui's expression the whole time. Could it be that this rose countered the one in Fei Rui's hand? Ning Shu held the rose and channeled the qi in his energy center into the rose. The rose didn't react. Was it useless? Or did she not know how to use it? But looking at Fei Rui's expression, it should be something good. Otherwise, how could vampires, with their noble and arrogant personalities, be so shameless as to ask a lowly human for something? Ning Shu channeled more qi into the rose. However, the color of the rose turned dark. It even started to rot. Ning Shu was speechless. What was going on? Ning Shu was dumbfounded. A drop of dark red blood slowly dripped out of the rose. The blood left the rose and the rose returned to its original color. It was full of vitality. What was this blood? Was it the blood of the previous owner of the rose? The vampire in the coffin? The drop of blood wanted to return to the rose, but it was evaporated by Ning Shu's fire dragon. Ning Shu held the rose and felt that this rose was even more beautiful than before. It was full of vitality. Fei Rui's face contorted in anger as he shot several annihilation rays at Ning Shu. However, this annihilation beam disappeared before it even touched Ning Shu. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows in surprise. What was going on? Ning Shu looked at the rose in her hand and smiled. Although she didn't know what was going on, it was definitely related to the rose in her hand. The roses were actually able to resist the light of annihilation. In that case, Fei Rui's ring wouldn't have any advantage. Ning Shu smelled the fragrance of the roses and said while standing on tiptoe, "Come on. This belongs to the Blood Clan. Hand it over." Fei Rui stared at Ning Shu. "One last thing. Hand over the blood race's things. Otherwise, the blood race will invade. There will be no place for you blood hunters." Ning Shu put the rose in her ear and said, "You're talking as if you're here as guests. Aren't you going to kill us now?" Ning Shu sneered and looked at Fei Rui and Mina. Then, he glanced at the blood hunters and vampires who were fighting fiercely. "This is already the second time. No more than 3 times. This time, all of you will stay here. Do you really think that blood hunters are a place where you can come and go as you please?" A huge fire dragon appeared behind Ning Shu. It roared towards the sky and rushed towards Fei Ru. Wherever the fire dragon went, the vampires who were hit by its sparks were burned to ashes. Fei Rui's pupils trembled. This fire dragon was even bigger than the last time. Fei Rui quickly shot an annihilation ray at the fire dragon. Ning Shu injected some energy into the rose, and the rose released an invisible barrier that dealt with the annihilation ray. The fire dragon rushed towards Fei Ru. Fei Rui's fingers grew sharp and he opened his mouth to reveal his fangs. With a roar, he cut the fire dragon in half. The fire dragon was just a body of energy. Even if it was cut in half, it wouldn't affect it much. Fei Rui's hand, on the other hand, had been charred black and was smoking. The fire dragon was the power of the sun and was specially used to counter vampires. Fei Rui would definitely be at a disadvantage if he fought it head-on. Fei Rui cut his skin and a drop of blood floated in the air and landed on the fire dragon. The fire dragon's body immediately sizzled, as if water had been poured on a burning piece of wood. It made sizzling sounds and smoke rose from it. Ning Shu didn't care. Let's play slowly. After all, the fire dragon's energy was gone. She could condense it again. Mina watched the battle in fear. She couldn't help but look at Ning Shu with shock in her eyes. How did Jasmine become so powerful? Was this still the Jasmine she knew? Had Jasmine been hiding her strength all this time? And she had hidden it so deeply. How scheming. In the past, she pretended that she wasn't very powerful and then waited to amaze everyone. How despicable. Mina looked at Ning Shu, who was leisurely playing with the roses, and felt as if there were countless ants gnawing at her heart. Ning Shu turned his head and met Mina's eyes. He smiled at her. Mina saw the smile on Ning Shu's face and couldn't help but shudder and retreat. She wanted to find a safe place, but she found that there was nowhere safe. The sun in the sky made her feel uncomfortable. In the past, she didn't think much of the sun. But after becoming a vampire, she couldn't even see the sun. Blood hunters and vampires were fighting all around her. If she wasn't careful, she would be affected. Only by Fei Rui's side would she be safe. But now, Fei Rui was fighting with the fire dragon and his hand was burned. Mina felt very insecure. Ning Shu formed a seal and cast a body-securing talisman, locking Mina in place. Mina was suddenly immobilized and couldn't move. She was horrified. What's going on? Mina reflexively looked at Ning Shu. Last time, she couldn't speak. This time, she couldn't move. It must be Jasmine's doing. Mina wanted to call for help from Fei Rui, but Ning Shu immediately cast a silence talisman on her. Mina opened her mouth, but she couldn't say a word. She was so anxious that tears fell. She glared at Ning Shu with hatred. This woman was too hateful. She kept teasing her. Facing Mina's gaze, Ning Shu felt very happy. This hatred was because Mina was too weak. That was why she could be teased by him. Fei Rui, who liked her, couldn't even protect himself. So what if someone liked him? If he relied on others, he could only be caught in the dark. Ning Shu floated in the air with a gorgeous rose clipped to her ear. Her fingers fluttered, and between the afterimages of her fingers, a huge talisman appeared. Chapter 1401. Ning Shu's seal rose into the sky and turned into countless flames that struck the vampire's body. The vampire wailed and turned into dust, leaving behind empty clothes on the ground. "Oh!" the blood hunters shouted excitedly. They hugged each other to celebrate their victory and looked at Ning Shu, who was floating in the air. Ning Shu pretended to be serious on the surface, but she was feeling smug on the inside. Fortunately, she had learned these things before, otherwise, it wouldn't have been so easy. Sure enough, no matter what skill it was, it would be used one day. It was very difficult to learn, but Ning Shu didn't expect that one day, she would be able to fight so easily without risking her life. The things she learned were integrated into her bones and blood, becoming nourishment for her growth. Ning Shu laughed out loud, revealing her snow-white teeth. Her fair face was accentuated by the beautiful roses beside her ears. She was dazzling and radiant. "I'm happy to be alive." Mina stared at Ning Shu in shock, her mouth slightly open. Was this Jasmine? Mina's throat felt sour. How could Jasmine be so radiant? Fei Rui, who was fighting the fire dragon, saw that the vampires he brought were all killed by a single talisman. Fei Rui had already discovered that the blood hunter's silver sword was very powerful. Once again they were all wiped out. Fei Rui bit his cheeks as Ning Shu shot a ray of annihilation at him. Ning Shu stood still, and the ray of annihilation disappeared before it could even get close to Ning Shu. Fei Rui was extremely angry and lost his composure. The fire dragon passed through his body and he groaned in pain. Although it was painful to suck the blood of a third-generation vampire, it didn't cause any substantial harm to Fei Rui. A huge fire dragon rose behind Ning Shu's back. As long as she had enough energy in her dantian, she could create many fire dragons. The fire dragon flew towards Fei Rui. Fei Rui's face was ashen. It was very difficult to deal with a fire dragon. The fire dragon couldn't feel any pain, nor could it die. With Ning Shu's control, Fei Rui was greatly restricted. As soon as he got close to the fire dragon, he felt extremely uncomfortable. It was as if the blood in his body was going to evaporate. Fei Rui's pupils constricted uncontrollably. Ning Shu grinned. 2 dragons playing with a pearl was more fun. Mina's lips were trembling. The vampires that Fei Rui had brought with him had been destroyed in an instant. Fei Rui couldn't escape now. How could Jasmine be so strong? She was immobilized. She couldn't speak or move. The other party could do whatever they wanted with her. Ning Shu looked at Mina, but when Mina met Ning Shu's gaze, she immediately looked away. Mina felt that the other party's gaze was terrifying. It was clearly a teasing gaze, but Mina felt a chill run down her spine. His heart trembled. Ning Shu arrived in front of Mina and beckoned to several blood hunter masters. The blood hunters immediately came over. Ning Shu said, "Put her up. Last time, we didn't finish cutting her in half. This time, we'll finish it." Mina was so scared that her face turned ashen. Several blood hunter masters carried Mina's body and tied her to the rack. There were also blood hunter masters with huge saws. Mina was so scared that tears streamed down her face. In addition, Mina was now a vampire. The sunlight shining on her body made her feel very painful. It was as if she was being roasted over a fire, especially since this manor was supported by the sun-gathering formation. For vampires, this was a dangerous place. Mina had just been embraced. She couldn't compare to those powerful vampires. Mina, who was tied up, was on the verge of death. "Begin," Ning Shu said. Then, he released Mina's hoarse curse. Mina was so scared that she screamed and shouted at Fei Rui, "Save me, save me." Vampires had strong regenerative abilities. A human wouldn't die even if they were sawed from the lower body to the stomach. They wouldn't die in a short time, let alone a vampire. Mina was so scared that her mind went blank. The fear of death lingered in her heart, causing her to panic. Fei Rui saw that Mina was tied up and panicked. He wanted to rush over to save her, but he was stopped. "Scram, or we won't stop until we die," Fei Rui said angrily. Ning Shu smiled and said, "Haven't we always been fighting until we die? I told you, blood hunter masters aren't for you to come and go as you please. Execute." Two people stood in front of Mina with saws in their hands. They began to saw one after the other. Mina started crying loudly. She was in a very sorry state. "Fei Rui, save me, please save me." Mina shouted at Fei Rui. Fei Rui rushed over to Mina. Another fire dragon rose from Ning Shu's back, causing Fei Rui's expression to turn extremely ugly. Another fire dragon joined the battle. Fei Rui couldn't rely on Mina at the moment. He was already panicking, let alone saving her. Mina ignored everything and shouted for Fei Rui to save her. She was in so much pain. The sharp teeth of the saw cut through her body. It was very painful, but her mind was very clear. Fei Rui took the risk and released a ray of annihilation in Mina's direction, intending to kill the blood hunter master with the saw. Ning Shu took the rose clipped to his ear and threw it over. The two collided, causing the space to distort, forming a spatial vortex. Ning Shu stretched out his hand, and the rose returned to his hand. Ning Shu put the rose back to his ear and looked at Fei Rui. Fei Rui's body had been pierced by the fire dragon, and his aura was a little weak. Fei Rui was much stronger now. If it was in the past, he would have died long ago. Fei Rui gritted his teeth and wanted to leave. If he continued to drag things out here, he might very well be buried here. Mina looked up and saw that Fei Rui wanted to escape. Her expression was blank, and then she was in extreme pain. Fei Rui wanted to abandon her? Fei Rui, Fei Rui. Mina screamed at Fei Rui. Her voice was like a cuckoo crying blood, and she was in extreme pain. Fei Rui's expression was conflicted. He still had to deal with 3 fire dragons. Fei Rui cut his wrist, and drops of fresh blood flowed out, dripping onto the fire dragons. This caused the fire dragons' bodies to become lighter. Ning Shu didn't care, and he formed a seal with both hands. Mina screamed at Fei Rui in extreme pain, "Kill me. I'm in so much pain. I don't want you to save me. Just kill me." Mina didn't want to fall into Ning Shu's hands. Fei Rui saw Ning Shu's fingers flying, and he sensed that he was in danger. But what about Mina? What should he do? Mina kept begging Fei Rui. Fei Rui raised his hand, and a ray of annihilation shot out from his ring. This ray of light was aimed at Mina. When Ning Shu saw this, he almost failed to form the seal. Since it was aimed at Mina, he didn't need to use the rose. Mina also had an expression of shock, surprise, pain, and despair. Even though she said that she wanted Fei Rui to kill her, she didn't want to fall into the hands of a blood hunter and be tortured to death. However, she also wanted Fei Rui to save her. Mina was hit by the ray of annihilation, and she instantly turned into nothingness. Chapter 1402. For mobile users, please visit this site. Ning Shu never thought that Fei Rui would kill Mina with his own hands. Moreover, both her body and soul had been destroyed. Was this what it meant to love someone and fulfill all of their requests, including killing them? Did Fei Rui not know that even Mina's soul had been destroyed? In other words, she didn't even have a chance to reincarnate. Ning Shu didn't know what the light from the ruby ring was, but it could destroy a person's soul. Mina disappeared completely. Mina disappeared without leaving a speck of dust behind. Ning Shu looked at Fei Rui in a daze. TSK. He thought that Fei Rui would risk his life to save Mina, but he didn't expect him to kill her. Ning Shu was speechless. Did Fei Rui really love Mina? Or was it because Fei Rui was suspicious of Mina? Could it be that her plan to sow discord had worked? See, she didn't have the power to defeat her enemies. She might even die in the hands of someone close to her. Fei Rui's expression was pained as he prepared to escape. I already said that you have to stay here today. Ning Shu formed a huge talisman and cast it on Fei Rui's body. Fei Rui's body became much weaker. He looked at Ning Shu with bloodshot eyes. Do you want to start a war with the Blood Clan? Ning Shu shrugged. Who is it? Who is it that keeps barging into the vampire hunting grounds? Who is the one provoking them? Now that you're at a disadvantage, you're using the Blood Clan to threaten me. Is there such a good thing in the world? Ning Shu cast a body-securing talisman and froze Fei Rue in place. Then he held his silver sword and stabbed it towards Fei Rue's heart. At the same time, 3 fire dragons flew towards Fei Rue and pierced through his body. The 3 fire dragons pierced through Fei Rue's body repeatedly. Ning Shu held his silver sword and stabbed it into Fei Rue's heart. It pierced through Fei Rue's body. Fei Rue roared and extended his sharp claws to pierce through Ning Shu's body. Ning Shu drew a body-securing talisman and froze Fei Rue in place. With his own blood, he drew a talisman on Fei Rue's forehead. Fei Rue grabbed Ning Shu's wrist. The body-securing talisman had lost its effect. Fei Rue extended his hand and bared his sharp teeth, wanting to bite Ning Shu. Ning Shu had no misgivings. If you have the ability, then come and absorb it. Her blood is filled with the power of the fiery sun. If you have the ability, come and suck it. Ning Shu slapped Fei Rue's forehead heavily, sending the talisman into his head. Fei was stunned for a moment. Ning Shu pulled out the silver sword from Fei's chest and slashed at Fei's neck, cutting off Fei's head. Ning Shu released all the energy in his dantian. The surging fiery sun energy burned Fei Rue's body. Fei Rue's body was filled with a large amount of third-generation vampire blood. Even after burning for a long time, it still couldn't evaporate. Ning Shu caught the ruby ring and put it away. This thing was hers now. Clean it up, Ning Shu said. Then he stood guard over Fei Rue's body, waiting for the blood in Fei Rue's body to completely evaporate. He was afraid that Fei Rue would be reborn from a single drop of blood. Ning Shu was really afraid that it would happen again. He was afraid that Fei Rue would come back to life again. Ning Shu sat on the ground and studied the ruby ring. The ruby was very big. Its color wasn't bright red. Instead, it was dark red. It looked more like the color of coagulated blood. What was the light that shot out from it? Ah, I know what this is. 2333's voice suddenly sounded in Ning Shu's mind. Ning Shu looked at the ring and asked, "What is it?" The gem in the ring should be a stone of the law of time. This light is a terrifying attack of time. The law of time is the most terrifying law. No one can stop the flow of time. No matter how powerful a person is or how glorious their deeds are, they will all disappear in the long river of time. This light attack can make a person experience tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years in an instant. Then, the person will vanish. Nothing can stop time. When Ning Shu heard this, he was so scared that he almost threw the ring away. Think about it. How could a person or a table exist for tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years? Anything that was hit by the light would be destroyed by time. Then what about this red rose? Ning Shu asked. 2333 said, "There are always exceptions. This red rose should not be affected by the attack of time." Ning Shu took the red rose off his ear and smelled it. Could it be that it would always be red? No matter what, it was a good thing. Ning Shu said to 2333, "Put these 2 things away." He couldn't go back empty-handed. He had to put away all the good things. Ning Shu moved his body and saw that the power of the sun was still burning Fei Rue's body. The third-generation vampire was really powerful. But such a powerful being was still sucked dry by Fei Rue. It was too illogical. Was this the protagonist's aura? Now that she had defeated Fei Rue, did it mean that she was stronger than the third-generation vampire? Ning Shu laughed so hard that he started coughing. He hammered his chest and waited for Fei Rue to turn into ashes. The blood of a vampire could make a mortal immortal. The blood of a powerful vampire could make a weak vampire strong and purify the blood in the body. This would lead to the development of a noble vampire. Tulu walked over and handed the phone to Ning Shu. He said, "Boss called to ask about the situation." Ning Shu said, "It's good. You can report it to Dai Lin. She's worried about you. She wants to hear your voice." Ning Shu took the phone and told Dalin that everything was settled. The vampire hunter was fine for now. Dalin was injured and her voice was weak. She told Ning Shu to be careful. Dalin hung up. Ning Shu gave the phone to Tulu. Fei Rui's body couldn't be incinerated. Ning Shu stood by the side and waited. She was getting impatient from waiting. Such a strong life force was beyond the reach of humans. Ning Shu took out the ruby ring and used the time beam to destroy it. But she didn't know how to use the ruby ring. Ning Shu didn't dare to use the ruby ring. If she accidentally hurt herself, she would disappear in the river of history. There was nothing to be afraid of. Ning Shu carefully injected a bit of energy into the ring, just like when he used Red Rose. Ning Shu pointed the ring at Fei Rui's corpse and chanted silently, "Shoot him to death, shoot him to death." The ruby ring didn't react. But in the next second, a time beam shot out. Fei Rui's body was annihilated in an instant, along with the powerful blood. Ning Shu sucked in a deep breath. This thing was truly terrifying. The law of time stone. This was just a stone. If a person grasped the laws of time, they could stop time and make time flow rapidly. 10,000 years could pass in a blink of an eye. They could turn back time. Damn, it's so powerful. This was an invisible weapon that could kill people. Time, wonderful novel to read at any time. Mobile users please visit. This chapter is 1402. If you think this chapter is good, please don't forget to recommend it to your friends in the QQ group and Weibo. Chapter 1403. A wonderful novel to read at any time. Mobile users, please visit. After dealing with Fei Rui, Ning Shu's heart was finally relieved. In the original plot, Mali was torn in half by Fei Rui. Now that the person who killed Mali was dead, the danger was temporarily resolved. There might be other dangers in the future. However, no one's life was peaceful. In the original plot, the vampire hunters who were supposed to be eliminated were still alive. This could be considered an improvement. Ning Shu went to the manor's library to look for information on the 13 families of the blood race. He got a rose and a ruby ring. Maybe the vampires from other clans had other treasures. However, according to the information Ning Shu had gathered, not everyone had powerful treasures. Even if they didn't have powerful treasures, they had unique and powerful talents. Ning Shu thought that he could obtain 13 treasures. That's right. If he really had so many treasures, he would be able to turn the world upside down. Ning Shu comforted himself. It was good enough that he could obtain 2 treasures. The blood race had invaded the manor twice. He should at least repay them. After all, she came from a country of etiquette. She should at least repay them. Ning Shu snuck to a place where the vampires were gathered. Then, he secretly set up a yang gathering formation without anyone noticing. This was the magic of the East. It made use of the time, the place, the mountains, the rivers, and the stars to achieve its goal. This allowed the vampires to be roasted by the yang energy at every moment. They definitely wouldn't die, but it would make the vampires suffer a lot. Ning Shu set up a yang gathering formation in a few places where the vampires were more concentrated. Then, he clapped his hands and returned to the manor. Ning Shu took out a book, dipped a pen in ink, and wrote down the cultivation method of the peerless martial art. As for why he used a pen and Chinese, it was to create a sense of mystery. Which Eastern technique was written in English? It didn't look mysterious or ancient at all. After writing down the peerless martial art, Ning Shu wrote a sentence at the back, saying that this secret manual would be handled by Mali. It was fine if she wanted to pass it to others, but she had to be careful. After that, Ning Shu wrote and drew some charms. These charms were the ones she used most frequently against vampires. They were all talismans used to deal with otherworldly items and to restrain vampires. These things were all left for Jasmine. If Jasmine didn't have a deep impression of her when she returned, he could even learn from it. This was a dangerous world, and he needed to be strong enough to protect himself. As long as he had the strength, he would be able to protect his own life. If he relied on others to save him, others might not necessarily save him, and even if they did, they might not be able to save him. With strength came dignity. No matter when, the strong would always be respected. In this place, Ning Shu did not find any yellow paper, but he did find some cinnabar. Therefore, Ning Shu used realgar water, which was mixed with a bunch of ingredients, and soaked the paper in it. After soaking it, he would take it out to dry and cut it into pieces. It could also be considered yellow paper. Ning Shu used cinnabar to draw talismans on it, and the effect was not bad. When he was out on a mission, he even used talismans to deal with vampires, and the effect was not bad. For ordinary blood hunters, these talismans were a great help. Ning Shu first gave the talismans to Tulu and Kathy to see the effect. If they used them well, they would be as common as holy water. Holy water was useful for weak vampires, but for stronger ones like Fei Rui, it was not very effective. Moreover, the holy water in the organization was released by Dai Lin by exhausting the energy in her body. Therefore, the greater the power, the greater the responsibility. He wondered if the Eastern techniques would not be able to adapt to the Western world. If they could, it could be considered a powerful offensive method. There was no difference in power, but there was a difference in people's hearts. Fei Rui brought a group of vampires to attack the manor, but none of the vampires returned. Fei Rui lost 2 elite vampires in a row, and for a time, the vampire manor became an incomparably terrifying place. It was a forbidden area for vampires. When Ning Shu heard these rumors, he was quite happy. At least there would not be waves of vampires coming to kill the vampire hunters. Ning Shu would also go out on missions and walk around. Maybe he would encounter the world's origin. If he encountered a third-generation vampire that was about to awaken, he would simply kill it. It felt like these third-generation vampires did not awaken naturally, but were forcibly awakened by his descendants. His descendants captured people and gave him buckets after buckets of human blood. Ning Shu's main goal was still the world's origin. He had not encountered the world's origin after running around everywhere. Was there no world's origin? Ning Shu's heart ached. He really wanted to quickly build the world. He wanted to get rid of the sword hanging over his neck as soon as possible. Erasing at the slightest provocation was really scary. Moreover, erasing was not a joke to scare people. It was a real knife that saw blood. 2333's voice sounded in Ning Shu's mind. Mission completed. Do you want to leave the mission world? This was a world where vampires and humans existed side by side. They kept each other in check, and there was no end to killing vampires. Moreover, without vampires, there would naturally be no more vampire hunters. Because without vampires, there was no point in existing at all. She had already helped Jasmine change her fate. What came next was Jasmine's own business. Now Ning Shu's status among the vampire hunters was quite high, almost the same as Dai Lin's. This status was obtained by Ning Shu's efforts in turning the tide in 2 incidents. Therefore, respect came from powerful strength. Ning Shu thought for a while and felt that he had done everything he could and should not have missed anything. Ning Shu nodded, "Leave the mission world." He just felt a little sad. There was no world's origin. There was nothing. Ning Shu felt dizzy. When he opened his eyes, he was already in the system space. Ning Shu sat on the sofa and saw the ruby ring and roses on the coffee table. Ning Shu put the crimson roses in the vase. There were crystal-clear dewdrops on the rose petals, refracting beautiful light. There was a faint rose fragrance in the air. It was very fragrant and beautiful. He kept the ruby ring. Although these things could not be compared to the world's origin, they were still treasures. The world's origin was very rare and precious. Moreover, its function was to construct the world. However, those things possessed great destructive power. Especially this ruby ring, the attack of the law of time was too terrifying. How many powerful people were buried in history? Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the sofa and began to absorb the soul force to enrich his soul. After completing the cultivation, Ning Shu looked at his soul. It had become a little stronger. He was wearing a white robe. The robe was fused with his soul. At least he had clothes to cover his body. He did not know if it was an illusion, but Ning Shu kept feeling that his clothes were hospital clothes. Why did it have to be white? Ning Shu felt that red clothes were very suitable for him. Wonderful novel to read at any time. Mobile users, please visit. This chapter is 1403, and the address is If you think this chapter is good, please don't forget to recommend it to your friends in the QQ group and Weibo. Chapter 1404. The wonderful novel can be read at any time. Mobile users please visit. Ning Shu opened the status panel and looked at his harvest. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 points, 87 million soul, 350 life, 141 wisdom, 414 charm, 70 mental power, 310 faith, 29115 martial power, 442 qualifications, 189 merit, 14180 skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate close combat technique, exceptional martial arts, intermediate poison technique, beginner business management knowledge, beginner code programming, beginner lawyer skills, beginner ghost catching skills. Honorary titles: War God Empress, Selfless Ancestor Tools, Calm Aura, Reassurance Pill, Faith Aura, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet 2. Aura, Mother of the World, Queen's Blessing, Model Worker, Qinshi's Blessing, Leader Aura, Grass Blessing, Lifelong Friend, Meow Meow Meow's Blessing, Life-Saving Hand, Zhu Susu's Blessing, Founding Female General, Qin Ermiai's Blessing, Lawful Beauty, Qin Ning's Blessing, Transcending Race Communication, by San Yang's Blessing. Note: can only communicate within a certain range of wisdom. Fulfill Jasmine's wish. Live. Do it again. Must succeed in snitching. Must not let the adulteress couple have an easy time. Mission completion rate, 100%, obtained 8 million points. Jasmine's Blessing, Blood Clan's Bane, can restrain evil things to a certain extent, such as ghosts, demons, vampires. Attribute, 0 faith, 3000 merit, 80. Ning Shu applauded. This mission's harvest was really good. He even got an aura. Ning Shu very happily distributed the attribute points. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 points, 10,000 soul, 350 life, wisdom, charm, 70 mental power, faith, martial power, qualifications, merit, skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate close combat technique, exceptional martial arts, intermediate poison technique, beginner business management knowledge, beginner code programming, beginner lawyer skills, beginner ghost catching skills. Honorary titles: War God Empress, Selfless Ancestor Items, Calm Halo, Tranquilizer, Faith Halo, Amulet 4, Upgraded Amulet 2. Aura, Mother of the World, Queen's Blessing, Sister Model Worker, Qinshi's Blessing, Leader Aura, Grass Blessing, Lifelong Best Friend, Meow Meow Meow's Blessing. Healer of the Dying, Zhu Sun Yang's Blessing, Founding Woman, Qin Ermiai's Blessing, Beauty of the Law, Qin Ning's Blessing, Blood Clan's Bane, Jasmine's Blessing. Cross-race communication, by San Yang's Blessing. Note: communication can only be achieved within a certain range of intelligence. Ning Shu was just about to take a nap on the sofa when he heard the notification from the chat system. Ning Shu lay on the sofa, crossed his legs, and opened the chat system. The chat interface popped up. It was Mei Ziqing. Ning Shu sent a smiley face over. Mei Ziqing asked Ning Shu if he was a super taskmaster now and wanted to team up with Ning Shu to do missions. Ning Shu said regretfully. She was still a high-level mission taker and hadn't even reached the points threshold. She was still a little short of 100 million points. Mei Ziqing could only find someone else. She had to find someone she was familiar with when looking for a partner. If it was someone she wasn't familiar with, if the mission was an enemy, she might not care about her partner's life and death for her own benefit. Mission takers were also human and had selfish motives. Mission takers also lived in the naked law of the jungle. The animal world told us that the slowest animals would be eaten. Everyone braced themselves and rushed forward in order to control their own destiny. After chatting with Mei Ziqing for a while, he closed the chat system. 2333 coughed and said, "Let me tell you some bad news." Ning Shu was expressionless. "I don't want to hear it." "You have to hear it." "I won't listen, I won't listen, I won't listen, I don't want to hear it." "Then tell me." 2333 crazy. When you become a super taskmaster, your points and attribute points will be reset to 0 and then calculated again. Ning Shu was speechless. What did you say? I didn't hear it clearly, Ning Shu said expressionlessly. Ning Shu felt that every day was like a bolt from the blue. 2333's effect was to continuously attack her every day. After becoming a super taskmaster, all the calculations will be done according to the super taskmaster's method. After becoming a super taskmaster, you will barely be considered a beginner. Ning Shu was speechless. Then the attribute points I spent so much effort to add will be reset to 0? Of course. The attribute points you added have already been used on your body. It's just expressed in numbers. Ning Shu was speechless. You still don't understand? For example, when you eat something, it has already become nourishment for your body. The numbers are just a record of how much you eat. Ning Shu raised her chin. Of course I understand. 2333. Why didn't you tell me that you understood? Let me explain it to you repeatedly. Ning Shu, I'm happy to. Thinking that her points were about to be reset to 0, Ning Shu opened the system's exchange store. She could exchange for some things, such as the marrow cleansing liquid. Things that cost hundreds of thousands of points, she would not even blink. Ahem, these points will be compressed into a point card. 10 million points for 1 point card. Ning Shu was speechless. She really did not want to talk to 2333 at all. She spent money as if tomorrow was the end of the world, but in the end she was told that her points would not be reset to 0. Didn't he just say that the data would be reset to 0? Idiot! Ning Shu silently closed the system's exchange store. She was too lazy to sleep, so she prepared to wander around the virtual space. She wanted to eat something and see the many taskmasters there. She wanted to listen to some gossip or something. She wanted to understand the dynamics between the taskmasters, or if there was any big news. Ning Shu stood in the passage to the virtual space. Her head was dizzy for a moment. When she opened her eyes again, she was already standing on a quaint blue stone. His ears were filled with clamorous noises. It was a bustling scene. Although it was very noisy, Ning Shu's heart was very calm. Walking to a lively place, she did not feel so lonely. Especially when she saw so many colleagues, people like her, working hard to survive. They were the same as the rest of the world. Ning Shu first went to the restaurant to eat something. She ate slowly and listened to the people at the table next to her. Basically, they were talking about the interesting things they encountered during the mission. Some people were constantly complaining. It was very interesting. Ning Shu listened to the words of these mission enforcers and felt much better. She was not the only one who had encountered strange people and strange things. Everyone was the same. It was better to have fun together than alone. Wonderful novel to read at any time. Mobile users, please visit. This chapter is 1404 and the address is. If you think this chapter is good, please don't forget to recommend it to your QQ group and Weibo friends. Chapter 1405. Wonderful novel to read at any time. Mobile users, please visit. Sure enough, when she saw others as miserable as her, or even more miserable than her, she suddenly felt that the world was beautiful. Ning Shu slowly finished her meal. She even packed some snacks and paid for them with points. While eating, she strolled around and looked at the things on the stalls. These things were obtained by the mission enforcers from the mission worlds. If she didn't need them, she would use them to exchange for merit or faith power, or exchange for things she needed. Ning Shu thought about what she didn't need and put them on display to see if she could exchange them for the world's origin. However, Ning Shu was just thinking about it. If the world's origin was really so easy to exchange, she wouldn't have gone to so many worlds without any gains. So far, there was only one world's origin. Ning Shu couldn't imagine when she would be able to gather all of them. Ning Shu felt that the things in her system space were all good things. For example, roses, ruby rings, and smart brain life. Ning Shu couldn't bear to exchange these things. Ning Shu looked at the things on the stalls to see if there was anything she needed. If she encountered something good, she could pay a price to get it. After all, there were many unheard of treasures in these countless plains. Ning Shu's eyes widened as she looked at the stall. She saw a piece of jade on a messy stall. The quality of this jade wasn't good, and it was placed on a stall. Ning Shu reached out to take the jade and pressed her other hand on the jade. Ning Shu turned around and saw a face she hadn't seen for a long time. It had been a while since he appeared in front of her. Seeing Zhang Jiasun again, Ning Shu's heart didn't waver. I saw it first. Ning Shu made a grabbing motion with his hand and took the jade stone away. Zhang Jiasun retracted his hand, glanced at Ning Shu's hand, and greeted Ning Shu. Long time no see. Ning Shu nodded. If this wasn't the virtual space, mission enforcers weren't allowed to fight. Ning Shu wanted to beat him up, or even kill him. Zhang Jiasun reminded Ning Shu of some very bad memories. If it weren't for this thing, she wouldn't have been killed once. How much is this? Ning Shu's stall owner asked. When Ning Shu asked, Zhang Jiasun was still standing at the side, as if he had no intention of leaving. Ning Shu glanced at him. He was not afraid of him. After experiencing so many things, Ning Shu was not frightened by him. When the stall owner saw that both Ning Shu and Zhang Jiasun wanted this thing, he felt that it should be something good. However, no matter how hard he tried, even using the system to scan the jade, he still couldn't find out what was inside. Now that there were two people who wanted it, the stall owner wanted to maximize his profits. Cough, since both of you want it, then the highest bidder will get it. The stall owner didn't want to offend either side. Even if he sold it, they wouldn't come looking for trouble with him. Ning Shu glanced at Zhang Jiasun. Sooner or later he would get rid of this man. Anyway, the feud between the two of them was deep. Ning Shu was a vengeful person, while Zhang Jiasun was a person with a dark mind. Damn, why didn't Zhang Jiasun get rid of the previous purge? Ning Shu even hoped to meet him in the mission world. She could kill Zhang Jiasun. Ning Shu looked at the stall owner. Even if you want to auction it, you have to give a base price. Do you want points, faith, or merit? The stall owner's eyes lit up. Faith power, right? 200 faith power. Ning Shu put down the jade and said to Zhang Jiasun, I'll give it to you. I'll back out. Then I'll pass. I don't have that much faith to buy a piece of jade with poor quality. Zhang Jiasun glanced at Ning Shu and said. The stall owner was speechless. Damn, what are these two doing? They were about to fight over it and now they don't want it? Are they messing with me? Ning Shu looked at the jade with disdain. I just want to pick up a bargain, but it costs 200 faith points. Do you think yours is worth 200? The stall owner said, This is a priceless treasure. Ning Shu spread his hands. As long as you're happy. Zhang Jiasun smiled and stretched out 5 fingers. The stall owner probed, 500 faith points? The stall owner was speechless. The stall owner looked at Ning Shu, and Ning Shu was very respectful. The stall owner looked at Zhang Jiasun, and Zhang Jiasun shook his head. I give up. The stall owner was speechless. Damn, I feel like I've been played. I'm the highest bidder. Give it to me. Ning Shu immediately picked up the jade. I don't know how long you've been selling this thing. At least you have some now. Ning Shu gave some to the stall owner and asked 2333 to put it away. He kept it in the system space and waited for Zhang Jiasun to snatch it. 2333 asked, Why did you buy a piece of trash? I feel like this is a treasure. Your feeling is wrong. After Ning Shu got what she wanted, she turned around and left. Zhang Jiasun walked beside Ning Shu. I helped you get it at a low price. Shouldn't you thank me? Ning Shu turned to look at him with his hands behind his back. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have spent so much. The stall owner asked for 200 faith points. Ning Shu knew that Zhang Jiasun was deliberately playing dumb. She didn't believe that Zhang Jiasun didn't know what the stall owner was thinking. Ning Shu was too lazy to talk to Zhang Jiasun. He directly said to 2333 in his mind, Return to the system space. Ning Shu disappeared in an instant. Zhang Jiasun's face was gloomy. Ning Shu returned to the system space and looked at the jade that he spent some faith points to exchange for. This jade was irregular in shape and was the size of a palm. Can you tell what kind of treasure this is? 2333 asked. Ning Shu looked at the jade. Feeling, intuition, a woman's sense of place. Could it be that Zhang Jiasen also has a woman's sense of place? He's just here to cause trouble. He's not here to buy anything at all. He's just deliberately looking for trouble. Ning Shu studied it for a long time. He used fire to roast it, but it was useless. It couldn't be broken or flattened. He used spiritual power to invade it, but the result was that he couldn't invade it at all. He didn't know what was inside. Ning Shu gave up on studying it and put it on the bookshelf. It really made him unhappy. He didn't meet Zhang Jiasen before. This time he met him. Enemies would meet. He really wanted to get rid of Zhang Jiasen. She met Zhang Jiasen not long after she became a mission enforcer. If it was now, Ning Shu would definitely make her soul scatter and not give her a chance to become a mission enforcer. Now, it was like a fishbone in his throat. Although he counterattacked for meow meow meow, he caused trouble for himself. No, there was more than one trouble. Damn it, why were these girls' husbands always abnormal? Of course, if the husband and wife were harmonious and lucky, they wouldn't give up their soul power. It wouldn't be her turn to counterattack. Happiness was always similar. Misfortune was also fucking similar. They all died in the hands of their husbands. Ning Shu took out a book from the bookshelf and began to read. Wonderful novel to read at any time. Mobile users, please visit the latest chapter of the canon Fodder female supporting characters Counterattack. This chapter is 1405. If you think this chapter is good, please don't forget to recommend it to your QQ group and Weibo friends. Chapter 1406. Ning Shu read the book, smelled the rose fragrance, and drank the spirit tea. This kind of life was really comfortable. Ning Shu finished reading the book and then put it on the bookshelf. He opened the systems exchange store and exchanged some fasting pills, water, and some basic medicine. He was afraid that he would enter some dangerous place when he entered the mission. He didn't even have food to eat, and it was even a place where he couldn't cultivate. However, now that Ning Shu could absorb the power of the fire sun, even if there was no spirit energy, he could still cultivate. But it was better to be prepared. After doing this, Ning Shu said, "Let's go do the mission." Ning Shu took a deep breath. With the strengthening of his soul, Ning Shu didn't feel so dizzy when he entered the mission world. He could clearly feel that he had fused with a body. After the body fused, Ning Shu felt that he was swaying. He opened his eyes and was surprised to see that he was actually locked in an iron cage. The iron cage was driven, and there were two people carrying the iron cage. In addition to the two people carrying the cage, there was another person beside them. Seeing that Ning Shu had woken up, he just glanced at him indifferently, as if he was looking at a product, without any emotion. Ning Shu felt a little bad. He didn't know where he was going to carry her. Why was her landing time getting more and more strange? What was her identity now, and why was she locked in a cage? The cage swayed, and Ning Shu grabbed the cage. This cage was made of fine iron. It was very hard, and it was cold to the touch, and it was locked by a very large lock. Ning Shu tried to open the cage, but with the strength of this weak body, he definitely couldn't open it. And this cage wasn't big, she could only sit and couldn't stand up. She couldn't be a slave, right? In short, Ning Shu felt very bad. Now she couldn't receive the plot. If the plot was interrupted, he might not be able to receive the complete plot. Originally, the plot of each world was very simple, just a simple and rough plot. The specific details of the plot were not at all. The cage swayed. Ning Shu touched his chest. It was a girl. Looking at the clothes on his body, the texture of the clothes was very rough. Moreover, the style, it was impossible to tell what style it was. It was like a sack over his body. Ning Shu was carried to a door. There were words written on the door, but Ning Shu did not recognize them. Someone knocked on the door and said, "Sir, your auction item has arrived." A faint male voice came from behind the door. "Come in." Then Ning Shu was carried in. Ning Shu was carried into the private room and saw a man sitting inside. This man was wearing luxurious clothes. Even the buttons were jeweled. "Get out," Alan said indifferently. The cage was placed on the ground, and the three of them went out. He even closed the door behind him. As soon as Ning Shu entered the house, he felt a wave of heat and the smell of charcoal. He saw that there was a burning charcoal in the corner, and there was a branding iron on the charcoal. Ning Shu had a bad premonition. He didn't expect to enter the mission at such an awkward time. He didn't even have time to accept the plot. Alan looked up and down at Ning Shu and said, "What skills do you have? What world did you stay in before?" Ning Shu didn't understand. His face was calm, but his heart was filled with. She was really a slave, and it seemed like she had just made a deal. What kind of world was this? Alan had a big sword on his back, and Alan looked a little Western. He looked like a knight. This world seemed to be a more magical world. "The Honorable Mr. Alan asked you what you know and what skills you have. Since you are from another world, you must know something." Alan's servant, Ning Shu, asked. Ning Shu was still calm. "At least let me accept the plot first." Seeing that the two of them were looking at her with unfriendly eyes, Ning Shu waved his hands and mumbled nonsense. He temporarily fooled the two of them. He had to figure out the current situation. In the previous world, he had killed many people. Now he was a slave in a cage. The difference was really too big. Ning Shu seized the time and started to use the peerless martial arts in his body. The spiritual energy in this world was very abundant. Ning Shu didn't only absorb the power of the sun and spiritual energy. He sucked all of it into his body. In this situation, he had to have the ability to protect himself. How did he end up as a slave? "Sir, there is a language barrier. Do you want to engrave the slave brand first?" The servant asked Alan. Alan touched his chin and nodded. "Then let's brand it." The servant immediately smiled and nodded. Ning Shu saw the two of them talking. Although she didn't know what they were talking about, she obviously felt that something was wrong. Especially when the servant looked at her with a cruel look in his eyes. "Fuck, do you want to rape me?" Ning Shu said. "Come on, come and have fun. Anyway, you won't live past tomorrow." The servant poked at the charcoal fire in the corner, and the iron plate in front of the iron rod was burned red. Ning Shu's pupils constricted. Was he going to press the red-hot iron plate on her body? The servant walked over with the soldering iron, Ning Shu. Extending the soldering iron towards the cage, Ning Shu avoided the red-hot soldering iron. The soldering iron seemed to be engraved with a sword. Ning Shu understood that if she engraved this brand, she would be the knight's slave. Ning Shu didn't care about an engraving at all. A person's ownership wasn't something that could be decided by a brand. As long as he was strong, this kind of shameful brand could become a kind of glory. However, the bright red soldering iron was pressed against his skin. His skin and flesh sizzled and emitted white smoke. There was also the smell of burnt skin and flesh. It was a devastating destruction to the skin tissue. If one didn't pay attention, they would die from a serious infection. Since they were slaves, how many people cared about death? Ning Shu avoided the soldering iron in the narrow cage. The servant's expression became very unsightly, afraid that his master would dislike him for his incompetence. What an untactful slave! Ning Shu nimbly dodged the soldering iron in the narrow cage, making the servant very impatient. Seeing that his master was looking over, the servant was afraid of being blamed for his incompetence. He directly reached into the cage, wanting to grab Ning Shu and prevent her from hiding everywhere. Ning Shu looked at the servant's hand reaching out to her. She grabbed the servant's arm first and twisted it heavily. In an instant, the servant's arm cracked, and his arm was removed, hanging down softly. The servant couldn't help but let out a miserable scream, causing Ellen, who had been watching the show, to sink his face. Ning Shu didn't stop there. She simply snatched the soldering iron from the servant's hand and used it as a self-defense weapon. Ellen stood up and clapped his hands. Not bad, very courageous. Ning Shu, speak human language. You think you're very handsome, huh? Ning Shu thought he was an idiot. Chapter 1407. You don't seem to have the consciousness of being a slave. No matter where you used to live, when you come here and occupy a body that doesn't belong to you, you are a slave. Alan looked down at Ning Shu in the cage. Ning Shu, speak human language, Alan smiled. Oh, I forgot that you can't understand me. Alan rang the bell in the box, and soon someone knocked on the door. Ning Shu stared at the door, holding the soldering iron in her hand. The soldering iron was not so red, but with a weapon in her hand, the lethality was always greater. Her strength was not enough to open the iron cage, but no one could hurt her. The door opened and a few burly men came in. They were bare-chested with bulging muscles and bald heads. Alan snapped his fingers. Move her to the carriage. This little thing is disobedient. You need to train her well. The burly men immediately walked towards Ning Shu. Ning Shu held the soldering iron tightly and looked at them calmly. In the end, it was the burly men who lifted the cage. Ning Shu didn't attack them. As long as there was no threat to her life, Ning Shu's first task was to accept the plot. Alan, with a huge sword on his back, was the first to enter the box. The cage was carried out of the room. At the entrance of the auction house, there was a black horse-like animal. But it was dark all over and looked like a magical beast. Ning Shu was put on the carriage. Alan turned over and mounted the horse. Ning Shu squatted in the cage and looked at the surrounding buildings. Ning Shu felt as if she had entered a fairy tale world. There were gorgeous buildings and handsome knights. However, she had become a slave to be branded. Ning Shu grabbed the soldering iron and accepted the plot as fast as she could. At the same time, she was cultivating. This was a magical world. The races in this world were very complicated. There were humans, beautiful and elegant elves, and powerful and evil dragons. There were dwarves who were good at forging, mermaids who were enchanted by dreams, orc empires made up of many races, and countless magical beasts. This world was incomparably vast, and the number of living creatures was incomparably rich, forming a fascinating and dangerous world. However, this world was very complicated. Because of its special location, there were as many transmigrators as dogs. If one were to say that the Qing dynasty had been penetrated like a sieve, then each and every girl would run towards the cold-faced King Yongzheng. He wanted to use love to teach the cold-faced king to be gentle. He swore to melt the iceberg that was the cold-faced king with his love and his uniqueness. Then this world would be transmigrated into a sky full of stars. Transmigrators had a sense of superiority, and the natives were not stupid. This world had a perfect system to identify transmigrators. For example, a person who was already confirmed to be dead suddenly came back to life. Moreover, when he woke up, he was like an idiot. He was most likely someone from another world. Otherwise, their personality would change completely after a night's sleep. He was different from the original person, doing some strange actions and saying some strange words. She had thought that she was cute, but she had probably changed her core. In any case, there were many ways. Especially those who lied about having amnesia. Actually, it was not a big deal to be recognized as a transmigrator. The scary thing was, the natives of this world discovered it. These transmigrators more or less had abilities that were easier to find than ordinary people. For example, what treasures they had on them, or what talent they had, such as X-ray vision. In short, the transmigrators had cheated and were discovered by the natives. Many transmigrators became slaves the moment they arrived. That was because no one treated these people from another world as their family anymore. Especially when they were sold at the auction house, it was equivalent to a windfall. They would not treat you as family just because they occupied your body. These transmigrators were treated as slaves in their ignorance. Some men had transmigrated and had not had the time to develop their ambitions, establish great achievements, and have endless beauties in their harem. They had not slept with the elf queen, the beautiful mermaid, or the princess. Any beautiful and pure woman would submit to them. They had not even woken up from their dreams before they were sold as slaves. Girls had transmigrated and had not had the time to meet beautiful men. They had met many beautiful men and fell in love with many beautiful men. They had been sold and branded with the mark of a slave. It was fine if the master was a beautiful man. As long as he was a beautiful man, he could fall in love. She was only afraid that the master was a perverted man with fat intestines. The people of this world had a consensus. These people from another world were all lowly and dirty. They deprived others of their bodies and lives. And if they were not careful, they might be transmigrated. As long as they were transmigrators, the transmigrator slaves would be sought after. The heavens would give these transmigrators special abilities. Let these people's abilities serve them. The original owner was called Wu Xiaolan. As for what her name was after transmigrating, she did not know. She was sold by someone. After transmigrating, this girl was sold to Alan. Alan was the man riding in front of her. This Alan was talented and became a Douqi expert at a young age. Wu Xiaolan was sold in ignorance and was branded with the Alan family emblem. From then on, Wu Xiaolan became Alan's slave. He was a handsome man after all. Wu Xiaolan was an ordinary woman. After transmigrating, she was still an ordinary woman. Before she had the time to feel it, the pleasure of becoming a heartthrob in another world was sold. Besides, there were so many transmigrators in this world. Even if they wanted to cheat, they might not be able to do it. Alan bought Wu Xiaolan because he wanted to know what skills she had. And the nobles would compete with each other for slaves from another world. Especially the transmigrators with special abilities, they would make the owner proud and ready to save face. And the auction house and slave shop, when you buy a slave from another world, would not tell you what the slave would do. It was the same as gambling on treasures and stone gambling. The superiority of the transmigrators would of course not given like this. But the natives of this world could discover the existence of such a group of people. How could they be bitten back? Once they found any signs, they would be executed on the spot. After all, in the eyes of the natives, these people were already dead. Of course, there was no lack of powerful transmigrators who jumped out of this swamp. More people were slaves for life. And the transmigrators who had no value were directly killed. Don't think that the people of this world were weak. Mages, Douqi, wizards. There were too many powerful people. Even if you were strong, there would be a powerful force controlling you. In short, the transmigrators of the previous world were unique and had a sense of superiority. Then in this world, the status of the transmigrators was the same as the status of pigs, cows, and sheep. The owner could buy and sell at will and had no right to speak at all. If you opposed, the owner's dignity could not be challenged. That was to die. Chapter 1408. If you don't want to die, you can only keep silent. The lowest-ranking transmigrator alliance in history was one of them. Wu Xiaolan became Alan's slave. Wu Xiaolan looked at Alan's handsome face, but his body was full of muscles. Carrying a big sword was so handsome that she temporarily accepted the fact that she was a slave. But Alan knew that Wu Xiaolan had no cheat at all. There was no trace of anger on his face. Then he gave her to his servant. Wu Xiaolan thought that she could have some development with Alan. Even if she was a slave, as long as Alan liked her and doted on her, the identity of a slave was not a problem at all. The result was really a godly development. Wu Xiaolan was dumbfounded. She was given to a servant, and she was a woman. The outcome was self-evident. When he was tired of playing, he was sold again. Alan didn't even bother to have a relationship with Wu Xiaolan. Instead, he gave her to a servant. Maybe Wu Xiaolan and Alan had sex, and things wouldn't be like this. Wu Xiaolan only needed to serve Alan, and she didn't need to be sold by many people. Wu Xiaolan couldn't stand such a cruel world and committed suicide. She committed suicide with a strong resentment. Wu Xiaolan's counterattack wish was to live with dignity, and take revenge on those who had hurt her. The longing for love was directly shattered by reality. Alan was cold and cruel and wouldn't treat her differently. Even the servants who had a relationship with her treated her as a tool to vent their desires. He pulled up his pants and left. Ning Shu accepted the plot and curled his lips. If Wu Xiaolan really did that with Alan and became his canary, she wouldn't be able to counterattack. After experiencing these things, she knew that dignity was precious. People didn't treat her as a human being at all, as an equal. She was still looking forward to love. Ning Shu found that no matter what world, most women were kept in captivity. That was a kind enclosure. When you were a child, your mother put on a beautiful gauze dress and leather shoes for you and praised you like a little princess. Then she told you that girls shouldn't run around and don't get themselves dirty. Don't speak loudly. Gentleness, beauty, and elegance were the lifelong cultivation of a girl. In the university, both male and female professors were very friendly to you, but the ones who came to you for personal work or to discuss profound questions were the guys. Girls, after all, should have bright eyes and beautiful smiles. Don't waste your youth on these boring and not beautiful things. In the company, the considerate boss will tell you that this project requires you to work overtime and go on business trips. Girls should get more beauty sleep. I'll get little Zhang to do such tiring work. Little Zhang, he's a guy who needs your help to make a PowerPoint presentation and can't even speak properly. However, he was a man. Later on, little Zhang finished the project and got promoted. You continued to do your daily chores with your noble reputation. After giving birth to the child, her husband was very considerate. He told her that he would take care of her, and she could just stay at home and take care of the child. Aya, you've been so touched that you've gone silly. You've worked so hard to be a housewife that you haven't noticed that you haven't read for several years. Slowly, you become a quiet, virtuous woman, with little interest in career, ideas, or hobbies. Your interest lies in how to raise children. If you still have the energy to spare, you should look after your husband. There was an experiment in psychology called tying an elephant with a small rope. A small elephant that was tied by a rope could not break free no matter how hard it tried. When it grew into a huge monster, the rope was a complete joke compared to its body. However, it would not try to break free again, because it had already accepted the firm belief that ropes cannot be broken free. This was habitual helplessness. Most of the traditional methods of nurturing girls were actually a kind of benign sexist captivity. They used gentler care than ropes. They silently nourished women's helplessness and let women accept their magnified weakness. These concepts came from society, the concept of family, and were rooted in women's hearts. Even women accept themselves. Compared to men, you're not smart, weak, and your value needs to be attached to others. I'm a woman, so I need to rely on men. I'm weak, so I need comfort and meticulous care. I'm afraid of being lonely, so I need someone to accompany me. Don't study such difficult subjects, such as science and engineering. Don't work hard. Ambition is not suitable for girls. Selling oneself at the most valuable time of one's youth would be the greatest success. As for women, they just have to get married. No man would treat women as opponents and partners worthy of respect. There were still some women whose criteria for choosing a spouse was to unilaterally accept meticulous doting. At first, there were men who could temporarily meet this condition, but later on, they would inevitably be disappointed. Why aren't you as good to me as before? You don't love me anymore. Women who had not learned to survive independently and were even willing to be kept in captivity would be ruthlessly eaten if they were suddenly pushed back into the forest. Ning Shu felt that Wu Xiaolan was a captive animal that had been pushed into the cruel forest. Helpless, afraid, unable to adapt to this world, even with the halo of a transmigrate. It was still useless. It did not become brilliant because it was in a different world. This world was so cruel and cold. Ning Shu glanced at Ellen, who was riding on a horse in front of him. His back was straight, and his back was incomparably handsome. Ning Shu rolled his eyes and pondered as he cultivated. He felt that even if he completed the mission in this world would not be repaired. The loopholes were like the stars in the sky because there were too many transmigrators. Even if it was repaired, it could not be repaired. It was completely a drop in the bucket. She could patch up a loophole, but there were still so many loopholes. Because there were too many loopholes. So many transmigrators were hurting the laws of this world again and again. Forget it, his mission must be completed, and it was done very well. Moreover, this world was so big, maybe there was the origin of the world. Ning Shu crazily absorbed spiritual energy, and his dantian was throbbing. However, the current situation was very unfavorable to her. She would slowly nourish her dantian in the future. Ning Shu was cultivating, and many people on the street were looking at her. They even pointed at her and gossiped. Ning Shu turned a deaf ear, holding the not-too-hot soldering iron in his hand. Even if it was not hot, it was still a weapon. The servant who was walking beside the carriage's cage stared at Ning Shu with a dark gaze. One of his arms was hanging limply by his side. Ning Shu glanced at him and retracted his gaze. In the plot, Ellen gave Wu Xiaolan to this servant. He shared Wu Xiaolan with many people, and then sold Wu Xiaolan. During the whole process, Wu Xiaolan had no strength to resist. If these people were said to be rotten to the core, then Wu Xiaolan was weak and powerless. After all, Wu Xiaolan's status was even lower than that of a servant, just like cattle and sheep. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.